The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Vans.
Oh yeah, I wanted to be absolutely not attractive to snowboarders.
Maybe we need an injection of that, because it'd be interesting.
And I didn't sign the contract, probably just had it in my bag for a couple of months.
And we're all like, oh, that's just banging, let her run.
We pushed each other to become better.
Front three-tailed it.
Season 5 of the FNRad Snowboard Podcast is sponsored by Wired Snowboards, the Boardroom Snowboard Shop, Crow's Nest Barbershops, Anon Goggles, and Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC. Tribute Board Shop is run by Shane Johnson and Mark Fawcett, two snowboarders who share a dedication to mountain culture, the preservation of our forests, oceans, and lakes, and the creation of authentic experiences in our everyday lives. The gear they carry is the gear that they know and ride. They carry everything you need to shred on concrete and in the backcountry, including skateboards, snowboards, split boards, skins, bindings, boots, waterproof jackets and snow pants, thermal underwear, and even board wax. Their friendly staff is in the shop 7 days a week to get you fitted with the right knowledge and the right gear for the season ahead. So next time you're in Nelson, swing by the shop for some high fives and good times. TJ Schneider is this week's guest. He's an incredible snowboarder and an incredible human being. His breakout web series, The Snowboarding Realms, started like before anything else was even available and is still one of the best collections of online snowboarding videos ever. I love the style of them, the editing. It's just fun. Go watch them. It's called The Snowboarding Realms. These days, TJ lives in Vancouver. He runs a retail shop called The Shop, which is a clothing store that specializes in specialty denim, amongst other cool things. And to prepare for this interview, I watched his Defenders of Awesome full part, which is totally mind-blowing. This is a long interview and a fun one, so strap in for the TJ Schneider interview from the basement studio of FNRad.
It's been a long time since I heard my own voice. I used to get really used to it.
Yeah.
You're probably used to it now. Like, you can just roll.
Oh, totally.
And it doesn't even faze you. It didn't faze me for a long time. Now it's like, what the
You know what it does for most people is they go back here.
Who is this guy?
With their own voice.
I don't want to hear this.
I'm way too loud in those cans. When were you recording your voice? You do some music stuff?
No, just from doing the Snowboard Realms.
From Snowboard Realms?
Yeah. Watching video footage of yourself talking to your... Yeah. I just don't talk that much nowadays.
Yeah.
Well, I talk all the time, but I don't have to watch myself talk.
Right.
It's a lot different.
Yeah, I just watched your part in Defenders of Awesome because I'm like, what was that sound?
Nothing.
What about that makes you cringe a little? Well, maybe it wasn't cringe, just like the idea of somebody watching your thing.
It's not even that. It's just filming was never my thing.
Really?
Yeah, never. I didn't really ever. Nah.
I've had a
it
lot
just wasn't my thing, you know? Like, some dudes, it's all about filming. It's all about like putting down the best that they can and that sort of stuff. That was just never my thing.
Your realm.
No, that was not my snowboard realm.
Yeah, it's amazing some people live in that, like, and they're really fucking good at it. I'm not saying you didn't have a good part. You had a great part.
No, but some of those dudes are great. Lots of those dudes. They're all really great.
Well, people come into snowboarding with, from all different places. And it seems like if you come in from skateboarding, then the natural progression is you're talking sponsorships. Like, did you skate when you were young?
Yeah.
So remember that, like, how high can you ollie? Are you sponsored kind of era? I'm older than you. So in the late 80s, early 90s, if you rolled up to a new zone and you were so pretty good, people would be like, oh, how many boards can you ollie? Used to stack them on their sides or flat up. And who are you sponsored by? Like, who are your sponsors?
Yeah.
So, like, a lot of people brought that over to snowboarding, which is like, okay, we just want to be sponsored. And then you figure out, okay, being sponsored means I got to go take pictures or something. I got to go film. And then if you get better, then you got to go film video parts. Like, that really was the only thing you could do. You could win contests or you could film. Right?
Yeah, I guess. I don't fucking know.
What era did you get into it? I just read that King Snow thing too, so I'm like, I'm all up to date
which one?
on your whole life.
Oh, okay, all right, perfect.
No, I'm just saying.
Tell me what I said.
So
I can
you
remember.
started on they called it a black ice, but it might have been one of those like Mogul Monster.
No,
black snows.
I had one of the Mogul Monster Black Snows. My sister got me that for Christmas when I was like 6 or 7.
Right.
I just remember being so bummed. I was a hockey player kid, you know what I mean? And my sister was she was older than me and she was way cooler. And they got me a Nintendo and they got me no, they didn't get me Blades of Steel. They got me that Skater Die.
Skater Die.
And I was so bummed.
Oh my God.
I was like, I wanted Blades of Steel. But later, then I went snowboarding a couple of times with that thing. It kind of sucked. It froze my ears. It was fucking cold. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I played hockey. And then I really started snowboarding in like 90, maybe 93, like 92, 93, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Maybe 94.
And so
No, New Year's Eve, 1993 was my first day snowboarding.
That's the day of real snowboarding.
Yeah.
This isn't Mogul Monster.
No, I got a Kemper Intruder 160 and it was fucking huge.
Which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
I know that board. And and that era of boards. Those Kempers were sick, but
it was big.
But they
didn't
make
my
them for
mom
kids
when they
like
that was the era of like the Burton twins were coming out
Yep.
and pre-holes, like the patterns were on the boards, and this was one of the ones where it was like probably a couple years old.
It would have been
fucking massive, and it was
you had to
asymmetrical.
drill it.
Yeah, you had to drill it, and then you could get the high backs where you could twist the thing, and then you could put them on backwards.
God!
I mean, it worked it worked for
rental
for
bindings. Those were rental bindings. They were really fucking heavy.
Everything about it was heavy.
Yeah.
I rode that for 1 year, and then
And you're a kid. You're like 12.
I was small.
Yeah, I was. I think I turned. Yeah, I was 15 for sure when I got a Avalanche Kick 175.
Old Damian Sanders style.
Yes, similar circumstances. Like go into the shop.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this one board that we have left actually suits you perfectly. It's supposed to go from from your neck to like 2 feet over your head, wherever.
Perfect.
It's totally fine as long as you're in that range. You're good.
Yeah.
And I mean, same thing. I had to drill it out to move the stance. Your bindings would come off on your feet with like the bolts sticking out like cleats,
I never had that. I never really rode that board that long.
Right.
I think I only really rode it that first, the end of that season, like, or whatever. I don't know if you call it a season, but we were snowboarding on like, in the graveyard and on like a small hill. You know what I mean? Like we weren't really going to I don't think I ever went to the mountains on that board.
Right. Yeah, that's probably for the best, actually.
Yeah, I was scared of the mountains, like terrified.
Interesting. Yeah, I was one of those guys who like lied to his friends when he was like 11 that I'd already had sex, and I told my snowboarding friends, "Oh yeah, I've been snowboarding for years, man. I know all about." So the first time you have sex, you go home and you just want to tell your buddies, and they're like, "Well."
I thought you did that like 6 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. And it was the same. My first time on a chairlift, I was petrified, but I was so overconfident that this was going to be no problem for me because I'd watched it on TV.
It wasn't the chairlift or anything like that that scared me. It was that I'm from Alberta and I'm from Red Deer, so it's like we have a river valley that we grew up and like snowboarded on. But I'd driven through the mountains before, and I saw them as like mountains, like sheer straight down. And so I was just like, I didn't really understand how a ski hill worked.
Right.
I'd never seen one. So I was like, how do you go down the mountain? Like aren't they super, like there's 1,000-foot cliffs.
Right,
this doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
And then I went to the mountains and was like, oh, yeah, this is way better.
Yeah, teaching my kids even, I remember being at the top of like Grouse or something, and they're looking down and they're like, I'm going to fall down there. And they're like pointing to the city. And you're like, no, you're going to fall down there.
Yeah, you're just
like,
going to fall 2 feet in front of yourself.
Yeah, right where we are. But yeah, I could see that for sure. So what's the second board then? Something more like your size?
The second year, I got a Sims Noah Selaznick, the one with the arc on the bottom. Yeah.
Nice.
That one got stolen from me right away. And then I just had so many snowboards. I kept breaking them, and fuck, it sucked. I had so many snowboards that first year, but luckily I got sponsored at the end of my first real year of snowboarding.
That's
so then it
fucked
didn't really matter.
How does that come about? You're just good? You go in a contest, you win the contest or something?
No, we didn't have contests back then, we didn't in our area. I think from the skateboarding thing of just like wanting to emulate the videos that were out there at the time, and then just me and my friends, we would make videos. Well, I would make the videos. I had like this ghetto setup of like an amplifier and the TV and a video cassette player and another video cassette player, and then I'd record and somehow dub. Like, if you asked me to try to do that to make one of those movies now, I'd be like, oh, I have no idea. But somehow you like Jimmy rig shit together to make little movies. And
hell yeah.
My one friend Brett was really good at skateboarding, so I used to make him skateboard videos, and then I just started making myself little snowboard videos, and we made one called I think it was called Canadians Kick Ass, and it was like just a handful of kids from Red Deer, and it was so fun.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have it somewhere? We got to watch that.
I have it somewhere. I know I had a copy of it. I don't know where.
Yeah.
It's probably in my mom's basement or something.
Yeah. That's so fun.
Yeah, it was super fun. But I sent that off at the end of my first year riding to Division 23 and 32 Boots and, a handful of other people.
Like the Canadian distributor guys, or like
I sent
direct?
it straight to the companies.
Holy
yeah.
fuck.
So I sent it to like, I remember I got a letter back. Obviously Burton was like the big guys at the time.
Right.
Hawkinson was just like a god.
Yep.
So I sent it to them, and I remember getting a letter back from them that was like, keep your chin up.
Yeah.
And then I sent one to Yuki Numaki, and they were like, keep your chin up.
Amazing.
But like, this is within a week of sending my video out. Mina, I think her name was Mina from Division 23. She called me. And then a couple weeks later, Eddie Lee from 32 called me.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that was fucking amazing.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
What were the boots at that time for 32?
That was first year 32. They had just
Pre-Peter Line even.
No, Peter was on right from the very start.
But I mean that Peter Line boot with the airbags.
I think they had the 3 on the side, or like the Etnies kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Peter Line was my favorite.
Yeah.
So
I could see that.
It was just one of those things where, it was like Peter Line, Jamie Lynn, Terry, those 3 dudes. Oh, and then I got into the retro videos. So Damien and a handful of other dudes were, super rad. But I just tried to emulate basically what Peter was doing. So my goal was to ride for the companies that he rode for.
So you sent the videos to those guys.
Yeah.
And then you heard back.
I heard back from them right away.
Well,
which was
video's
cool.
got to be really good then. Or there's got to be something that they saw in it that they're like, holy shit, this guy.
Super little kid. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just a small kid, I was a little guy.
Yeah. Did you get to meet Peter pretty quick?
I mean, I met Peter way before he met me, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, I met him, but he wouldn't have known who I was till way later. Yeah. I met him at the West Beach Classic, maybe 1997, 96, somewhere in there. Yeah. I can't remember if it was 96, 97. I was out that way. And I met him, and I remember getting a photo of him and then getting it printed really fast and getting him to sign it at the Big Air that night.
No way. Like a 1 hour photo.
Yeah. Like literally super fast. Like
took
a photo of him at the pipe.
Yeah.
He was riding Drakes, and I remember that was like the first time I saw Drake bindings, and was like, what are these? I need to ride. And he was riding a fucking Forum, and I was like, I want to ride for Forum. I saw Duff C, and we gave each other a stink eye. I tell Duff that. I've told Duff that story before, and he's like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I can't imagine him giving anybody stink eye.
Yeah, we got stink eyed.
That's incredible. That's such a fan story.
Yeah, it was cool. I did the same thing with like Damien when I met him the first time. And
where would you met Damien? Probably Blackcomb or something.
Yeah, I met him on the glacier.
Yeah.
Maybe I remember Roberta, I was like, holy shit, that's Damien Sanders. Because I'd watched, what was it, The Dirty Dozen and those kind of movies and stuff
Yeah.
like that. As much as I hated his parts, I really loved them. You know, it's like he always had the weird, just wonky, like wild style.
Yeah.
I was more of a Terrier guy in those, but I for some reason I was like, holy shit, Damian Sanders is like, he's legit.
Yes.
And then I remember Roberta being like, go talk to him, like go get a photo of him, and yeah, it was cool.
Oh, that's sweet. Were you a kid at that time?
Yeah, I was like 16.
Yeah.
17, 16. Maybe, yeah, 16.
Yeah, so you're full 5-8 years younger than Roberta would have been. Would she have been a coach at?
Yeah, like that was that first generation of like North Van kind of Vancouver kids. Like Andrew Hicks was out there.
Yeah, rookie.
Yeah, Andrew and Dre Glover and Roberta and Rob Picard, those guys.
Brad.
Yeah, Danik. Those guys were my coaches right at the.
That's incredible.
Right at the first year I went to camp.
So
second year too.
Is that at the snowboard shop camp?
Yeah, I did the Camp of Champions.
Camp of Champions.
Yeah.
Sick. How was that?
It was awesome. I mean,
were you already sponsored at this point?
Yeah, I was riding for Division 23. You know, it's. I actually remember. So Dennis Bannock, I did get into contests like right towards the end of my first year, the ASA. There was a handful of contests. I remember going to the first one in Calgary and just that I went to and was like, whoa, this is crazy. And then I did maybe one in Fernie and one Fernie was the next year. I did the one in Calgary and then I did the Nationals at Lake Louise.
Yeah.
And I remember Greg Todds was building the pipe with a chainsaw. Dennis Bannock was judging, and I was riding an old Atlantis board. And I remember dropping in. My run was like drop in switch, little fakie 3, frontside air, something like switch alley-oop McTwist because that's all I knew how to do.
Wow.
And I remember walking up the pipe, and Bannock was like, "You thought about being a pro snowboarder?" And I was like, "No," you know. And he's like, I think you could do it. He's like, you should try. And I remember, at that very moment, I found this little tiny rock on top of the half pipe and was like, I'm going to keep this as good luck. And I threw it in my pants pocket, and I still have this fucking rock to this day.
Holy shit.
But I blame Dennis Bannock for the remainder of my life, basically, is what I'm saying.
No,
but yeah, and then he was like a coach up at Camp Champions, and fuck.
One of the nicest guys. Yeah, he was like he was the national team coach one year for the Olympics going in, and my buddy Dave was going out for it. But Dave was old by that point, you know, like it was like kids going for it, and then Dave. And Dennis just was like, yeah, dude, keep trying, keep going. He was like, he was just like a nice person. And I've only met him a couple times, but he's always super cool. But so you owe him, or he owes you an explanation.
Well, he owes me probably a whole bunch of money because otherwise I'd probably be a hockey player or some shit.
Right. How far did you
I'd
go
almost be retired from hockey. I'd be a retired hockey player by now.
Were you
living the good life?
Were you taking it pretty serious? Were you a good hockey player?
Yeah, hockey was my thing.
Yeah.
I'm from Red Deer. That's what we do.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah,
Stamp.
I came out from Sudbury, Ontario, which is a big hockey town, and they basically chased me out. I still can't skate to this day.
I love it.
Yeah, I'll go skate around with my kids to like look funny. You know what I mean? I still need the cage.
Ooh, that's brutal.
No, I can, but it's close.
You're exaggerating.
It's very close. Yeah. I mean, it's better if I'm holding someone's hand. But then they're also at risk for falling down.
Just ride or come behind you. Just hold your hips.
Yeah, thank you.
You can do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's nuts. You know what? I had one of those lame experiences in school where you go with the class, and I was like the one kid that fell down a lot. I think I hurt my ankle, and I was just like, I don't do that. Like if I can choose not to skate, then I'm not going to skate.
No, if you didn't skate. If you didn't play hockey in Alberta, there was something wrong with you pretty much. Yeah.
Well, that's how people thought about me for sure.
Yeah.
And then I moved out west and people are they weren't doing yoga yet, but skateboarding guys were like the jocks of the high schools. And I was like,
yeah, that's weird.
This is crazy town. And there were parks everywhere and people were just like really outdoorsy. You know what I mean? As opposed to being, you know, I'm not saying hockey players aren't outdoorsy, but most of the time they're training, then they're drinking beer, then they're fighting people, and then they're
I was
sleeping.
too young to be doing that.
Yeah,
I was just playing hockey.
So you didn't think you could play hockey and do this snowboard thing, or?
Not really. Being like, what was I at this point? 14. You kind of have to make a decision of like, are you going to be serious about hockey, or are you going to do something else?
Right.
You know, more or less a single parent family. Hockey gets expensive.
Yeah.
It's like $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year to be on the teams, and it was just like, I'm getting free snowboards.
Right.
You know, a pass is $170.
Right.
And then, you know, it was also more of a solo thing rather than a team thing.
Mm-hmm.
The team element of hockey was just so, I don't know, it just seemed, I kind of grew out of that, I guess. And snowboarding was just more of like a solo act. You were doing it for yourself. It was like an escape. It's like skateboarding, you know, you can leave your house at, you know, you're 12, 13 years old. You can just leave for all day and you're skateboarding. It's fine.
Yeah, it's surprising, isn't it, how independent it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it is nice to not be reliant on being on a good team. I remember that about team sports. Like soccer, one year you'd be on a winning team, you'd be like, I want to do soccer forever. We're winning every game. We're so good. This is great. And then you'd be on a losing team the next year and you're like, I want to quit. This fucking sucks.
It wasn't that. It was just I don't know, it was more of just a personal thing. It was like I didn't have to really rely on anybody else to do something or to make something happen. Like with hockey, it's if you're like a one-man showboat, whatever, cool. You're, you know, Sidney Crosby or some Wayne Gretzky or whatever. But with my hockey, it just wasn't like that. My last year that I played was super, super fun. I played like the shittiest hockey you can play, but it was all kids like me who were good, but didn't want to play on the crazy traveling teams, you know, like my last years of real hockey were, you know, Southern Alberta selects and teams that were supposed to travel to all these fucking places and, you know, got over it.
Yeah.
Went to summer camp instead.
Like snowboard summer camp.
Yeah.
Was that where you kind of first got exposed to the kind of like, okay, this is what pro snowboarding would look like. It's pretty, you know, like fun.
I mean, I got exposed to pro snowboarders and people who encouraged me to become pro snowboarder, but that's kind of a hard thing to look at. Like I wasn't looking at it like, oh, this is what pro snowboarding is like. Oh, this is what's expected of you, or anything like that. It was just like, cool, I get to snowboard in the summer, and these guys are being like, I can help you, you know, or whatever. Right.
Yeah, you must. Obviously, you had that thing. I mean, you're doing switch. Did you say switch McTwist?
Yeah, a little like basically a misty flip in the pipe.
Right.
You know, alley-oop style.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But like people are going because I remember that era.
Yeah.
Was like, if you were a kid, everybody wished they were like, oh, I wish I would have got into it a year earlier because I'd be a year ahead of where I am now. And every year, the kids who had been into it for a year were like that much better, right? Like the 14-year-old 1 year would be a 16-year-old 2 years later, and nobody who had been there a couple years before could keep up. So.
We didn't really look at it like that. I don't think for us anyway. It was just like we basically watched the videos,
right? And
I watched what they were doing and went, okay, so this is what we do,
right?
You know, this is what a snowboarder does.
Yeah,
I remember. Like the old well, it was a Mac Dog video. The 411, what were they called? The Transworld?
Yeah, the Transworld videos. You're the second person to bring them up this year.
I had like an early one of those.
Yeah.
And it was like Jason was snowboarding Utah. Peter had a little thing in it, I think.
Yeah, Peter had a bunch.
You know,
yeah.
And it was like, I just basically watched those videos over and over and over again. And then
they were really progressive,
every little hit that I found, I was like, okay, this is where we learn this, or this is where we try this. This is where, and, you know, we had like a little half pipe embankment, but it was like to go on the toe edge in that one, you had to go switch. So you learned how to hit things switch. To hit this, you learned how to go this way. Right away, you kind of learned how to canyon anyway, how to snowboard kind of both directions.
That's right.
Because there was a lot of side hits. So if
Yeah.
you know, it's too tight to come on your heels, you can't really make that. So you just drop in switch.
Amazing.
And then, yeah, snowballs. And you just start trying the shit that Peter was trying, just way smaller.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, actually, Devin mentioned traveling with Peter was just like, he just comes from another, he's just able to do things that people can't do. Like you watch, you go, that's
As
impossible.
Devin says that.
Yeah.
Gee. Weird.
So I'm curious about this first sponsorship thing. Like, what do? They send you a box of 3 boards or something?
Yeah, not much. You know, they sent me one of Peter's boards. It was like a prototype one of the rainbow board.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I gave it to my friend Adam. It had a black and white rainbow on the top.
Oh, damn.
Instead of the color one. Yeah, they sent me a board, and then 32 maybe at some point sent me some boots, and that was it. And then I kind of kept getting boards from them for a while, and then eventually, oddly enough, kind of moved down. I started riding for a rep.
Right.
You know, it was like,
Right.
I think actually Division 23 sort of went out of business. I don't really know what happened.
Somebody bought them
Yeah.
and hoarded them out.
Yeah.
Which meant that the whole team just got
Like I remember
dropped.
my team manager went from like this person to this person to this person to this person, and
Yeah.
and the person I'd call for boards, and then it just was like, well, I need snowboards, so I ended up getting on like Mervyn stuff for a while, and
Who would the rep be from Mervyn at that
it was
time?
Chris Lee
Yeah.
out of Kelowna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he would have drove all the way out there.
Well, he was. I hung out at a shop called All Rose all the time
Mm-hmm.
in Alberta, and I don't know, whatever reason. I think because I had some boards from them or whatever, and I just kept breaking them.
Right.
I don't remember. I know I broke like a million Live Techs. I had like a Groovy that got broken. Or stolen.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Can I take us on a small housekeeping rant here?
Yeah.
So I've been talking shit on boards made in China because I'm super psyched. I get my board made at Clark and Venables at Rob's place, right? Like, so I'm all about sustainable, home cooked boards. And I've definitely said some shitty things about Chinese manufactured boards on the show, and listeners are like, dude, seriously, if we, shop owners are like, a lot of boards are made there and they're really good. So you have to stop. Please stop saying that they suck. And they actually said it, one of the guys said in his talk about it, that the boards made in North America, not naming any names, but somebody just mentioned they broke a bunch of them, are the ones that fall apart the most, right? And again, I got nothing against those guys. Those guys are awesome. I fucking look. I got their boards right here on the wall. I love them. But when it comes to quality of board, you can't just make a blanket statement about where the factory is. And so I'm sorry to all the people that have their boards made overseas or in Austria or in Spain or in Myanmar, wherever you're going to build your boards. If your factory's good, the boards are good, that's good.
Yeah, it's like anything.
Right.
I mean, China gets the bad end of that stick a lot. Some of
Big
the
time.
some of the shit in China is like the most high tech, best quality stuff you'll ever see.
Right.
Some of it is pure shit, but that's the same as here. That's the same as everywhere. It depends on.
I think the big thing that I was going after was that, like, listen, you know what? I read a book one time.
Blanket statements are easy.
Blanket statements suck. I read a book one time about Chinese factories and about the fact that they're not actually, they don't just like build a factory and then the townsfolk apply for jobs and then they work there. It's like they're importing the most impoverished workers from countries where they give them crappy contracts and then force them to live at the factory. And if they get hurt, then their food is coming out of their paychecks, and they might get to the end of the
That's
thing.
basically that real. I think it's called the Real Cost documentary.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, they talk about that kind of shit.
Right, and I'm not saying. So I brought that back to Rob. I said, "Look, you're building boards in China. It's not the quality that I'm worried about. It's the working conditions." And he goes, "Dude, get your head out of your ass." I went to this factory. The guy who built it lives in the town. His friends who live in the town work there. It's not like what you're...
What is it? It's like narrow scope view. It's
Yeah.
It's fucking most journalism.
right. Well, you need
prove
to
your point.
Yeah,
look
yeah,
at it
yeah.
Look at it through a scope that's
you
this
need to
big. And,
you need to find something.
Yeah.
So really, okay, to the listeners who are tired of hearing me rant on Chinese stuff, I realize the hypocrisy of it when I'm like, okay, my boots are from China, my socks and my first layer is China, my pants and my jacket are from China, my gloves are from China, my goggles are from China. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That's where everything I get is from.
Made in China.
What I really want to apologize to is the Chinese people that work so hard to make this stuff as good as it is, because it's fucking great stuff.
There you go.
So
this will play over the loudspeakers at your next factory.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm looking for a
FNRad podcast publicly apologizes.
Yeah. I mean, but you get sucked into it, right? Like if I go to a farmer's market, I definitely feel better about the food I'm buying because I'm seeing the people that are not making any money selling it to me. And I kind of felt like the same about the snowboard thing, but then when I really looked at what my reality is, I get boards made locally.
I think that's great.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I like it.
Yeah.
I like being able to go
I'm
in
right
that
by
factory.
Rob's spot.
Yeah, it's
I
sick,
want to
right?
go in there. It seems super
Go
cool.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Go in and pick a board and get something made and put some...
it feels so
shit
weird
on it.
riding something other than a Capita, I feel like.
Right.
It'd be really strange. I mean, I still have like a 10-year-old Capita, but whatever.
Yeah, what board are you riding?
Just my old board, my last one.
Sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. It still rips.
It works.
Yeah, is it weird to not get stuff new every year? Because now I'm back in the new every year thing. And for the first year, it's kind of hard. And then after, you're like,
For me,
no, it's
not
good.
really. It doesn't, it's kind of irrelevant. I don't really snowboard a ton anymore, so I don't really care.
Where do you go when you go? You go up
Just
Seymour?
Seymour, yeah.
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 We've probably even ridden together at some
I
point.
just love the little bumply bumps.
Everything there is good. Yeah. Everything there is good.
Yeah.
Like, it's just fun.
Yeah, exactly.
And people who hate on it, it's like, good, you shouldn't be
Yeah.
there, for sure.
Yeah, go away.
Yeah, exactly.
It's easy.
Yeah, they're going to do RFIDs up there this year.
Like deluxe? For what?
Like, there's going to be a gate to go through,
Oh,
and
really?
you have to scan your pass.
I don't think they've ever looked at a lift ticket there.
No, one time, I shouldn't be saying this, and I'll probably cut this out, but one time I was riding up the chairlift with Eddie Wood, and I could see he was kind of looking for where my lift ticket was. And we talked the whole way up the chairlift, and then we got down to the bottom. And the next time I went to go up the chair, the guy checked the tickets, was like specifically to me, like, "Where's your pass?"
You're like, oh, it must have fallen off.
Oh, it's on my other jacket. I changed jackets in the car. And I was thinking, I just want to do one last run. And I was like, can I go up and get it next run? The guy's like, absolutely not.
Nope.
And I went in. I think I bought a spring pass right after that, like to make myself feel like, oh well, I would have had a ticket if I would have just bought my spring pass today. So what's the difference?
Yeah.
You know, free more. Okay, I gotta stop the tape here for a second. I listened back to that story, and some of you will have caught it. It's gross. It's dumb. And I'm about to talk with TJ about how, wow, I'm really exposing myself as a super asshole. And when I listened back, I felt like, oh, not only am I a super asshole, like I'm being stupid. I have to cut that story out. I can't put it out on the air, you know? I've got a relationship with Mount Seymour. Eddie Wood's my friend. And why the fuck am I saying that shit anyways? But the thing that really stuck in my guts is that the last part about me buying a spring pass, no, I didn't. I've never had a spring pass. So that's just bullshit. I was stuck on this for a few days, actually. I really obsessed over, like, what the fuck do I do? Do I just cut the story out and know I'm a huge liar? Or, like, I can't put it in. Seymour will pull my fucking corporate passes. And rightfully so. So I did the only thing I could think of.
Yeah. Are we good like this?
It's perfect.
Okay.
So the story I tell on the show is that I was up here, I was riding without a lift ticket, and I saw you in the lineup, and I was, oh, hey, Eddie, thinking, I'll never get caught if I'm riding up the chairlift with Eddie Wood at Mount Seymour, and I feel bad about that, bad enough. But the lie is, at the end of the story, I say to the guest, so I went to guest services, and I bought a spring pass because the spring pass would have been valid that day. And it took me a few listens to realize I've never had a spring pass. Why did I say that? And then I was like, I said it because I don't want the listeners to think that I'm a bad guy. And then I thought, wait, I am a bad guy, though. That's the thing. The honesty is, that's a bad thing to do. It's dishonest. It's stealing. So how can I hold in my brain the thought, I like to support Mount Seymour. I love Mount Seymour. The culture up there is so important to me. And I'm going to steal lift services from this place. So I wanted to come up and confess. I was driving up the road going, he could tell me, you're not welcome on this mountain anymore, and we don't want to support the show. And I would be like, yeah, I understand completely. I thought, let's just have a discussion about entitlement at Mount Seymour, because it is an ongoing theme, right? Like from corporate passes, which are really a beautiful program to encourage people that work in retail to come up here, experience the mountain, and then go back into retail and talk about how great Mount Seymour is. And then there's obviously, throw a few extra of your friends on that corporate pass list to get everybody free, which is, again, you're supposed to be telling your friends, hey, come up with us. We get free tickets. You guys, whatever it is, it's $50. Come on up, or come up on a night where, you guys do so many cool things, like women ride free, and I feel horrible. And I see in your eyes that you are not, calling security. But I am genuinely sorry. I grew up entitled with corporate passes and comp passes and all that sort of thing, to the point of where I'm almost 50 and I'm coming up a mountain feeling like I don't have to follow the rules. And that's just not fair.
Well, you've coined it really well, and I appreciate what you've had to say. I think that the effort that we put into operating the resort, it costs money, and resources are required to do a good job. I would step back for a minute and say what's really important to me is that we have a culture that is welcoming. And I'm delighted in the career I've had here at Mount Seymour to see so many people come up with friends and family and have a great time, create amazing stories that will go down in time. And I think that's awesome. But I do need everybody's support to make this work. And I don't think I could have described what you've said any better. I think you hit all the right points. I think the reality is that everybody does need to be accountable riding and skiing here. I appreciate your honesty, and I appreciate the fact that there's an understanding that there are resources required to make this operation work. It is a form of theft. There's no two ways about it. You're being very real about that. And I feel that, we have had a period of time where, there have been cases where that's happened. Moving forward, we can't have that happen if we're going to continue to put in the efforts that we do in grooming and terrain park features, lift equipment, all those improvements we've made over the years, and we want to continue. But everybody needs to be on board to make that happen.
Yeah. So with this RFID system, what's happening at Mount Seymour is a scan to lift every run. Is that correct?
It is, and we're actually really excited to be introducing this technology, and we've done it for 3 reasons. Our first reason is to make it easier to ski and ride at Seymour. And so this technology gives you the benefit of loading your ticket or annually your pass at home and not having to line up for a ticket or to have passes processed in the future. So the ease of moving into the resort and getting to the hills quickly is number 1. Number 2, we need information, I think, in order to be on the leading edge for what's next in the way of passes and tickets and that sort of thing. So we really want to know where are people skiing and riding, and we get that visually, but this would be a way of really making that clear. I think in addition, we get to understand how long people are here. We do have those peak periods during the season, and I think the more we can understand about how that functions and what those time frames are, I think the better it is moving forward on ensuring we're providing the right passes at the right price point. So that's number 2. And then number 3 speaks to what you were saying earlier, and that's compliance. It's really ensuring that everybody has a valid ticket. It's also meant to make it easier for our guests and easier for our staff to ensure that that compliance exists. And in the end, everyone compliant, everyone can have a great time. We can continue with the stories and making history at Mount Seymour.
Sincerely, from my heart, thank you for doing everything that you do and being understanding that sometimes we make bad decisions. And I think I'd like to take this opportunity to invite every listener that comes to Mount Seymour to really think about what it means to love Mount Seymour, and make sure you have a valid lift ticket, guys. It's the right thing to do. Coming from a guy who is now making sure that that's always the case. Thanks, Ed.
Awesome. Really appreciate it.
All right. Okay, back to the interview with TJ. I mean, I don't know. I'm exposing myself as a jerk. It's lame to do. But it's like, it's so tempting when you want to go snowboarding. You don't have $70.
Yeah, it's expensive now. That's why I don't go so much anymore. Last time I rode Whistler in the winter, fuck. When was Grenade Games there?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think that's probably the last time
12 years ago? Something?
No, couldn't be that. Well, maybe. Yeah, fuck. 2000. Oh. Just 2010, probably around there.
Yeah, like because that was Olympics year. So yeah, maybe the year after. I remember Danny Cass came down for the Olympics, and Grouse did a monster party, and he was the guest of honor. Probably said this on the show before, but he fucked with us. Like, we were like, dude, we're fans of yours. Can we get a picture? And he gave his friend our phone, and the friend didn't take a picture and gave it to us. And we were like, oh, you didn't press the button. And we did it a second time, and he didn't do it again. And we were like, oh. And then we had to ride up the tram with those guys, like, right there.
You're like, you're a dick.
Yeah, wow, that sucked, man. But he was a cool fucking, like, Danny Cass was, like, all time. Like, attitude, his ability to...
Yeah, he was great. I remember Danny from... My buddy Scott met him at World Juniors, maybe 96, 97, somewhere in there. And then around that same time, we started this thing called the 138 crew, which was like our, remember the 418 crew?
Of course.
There was like the Ontario Ghetto Kids, all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And
what was 138?
Obviously the Misfits shit. My friend Brett and I were skateboarding it was the winter, it was cold as fuck. We were in this little garage thing that he had, and we built this wall ride, and I went up, and my wheel got caught in a hole or something, and I fell. I ate shit underneath a RV that was in there, and We Are 138 was playing, and I was like laying underneath this RV, and I was like, we should start a snowboarding crew called the 138 crew. And we started it because it was like, again, there was things like the Ontario Ghetto Kids. I can't remember the one, 5 to 10 or something like that was another crew in Calgary. And then we had it was my friend Brett, myself, Scott Shaw, Dwayne Weeb, Mike Carter. And then Scott, I think, got Danny in on it. We made him some of the early footage of Danny when he was like riding for GNU. He has like these big Misfit stickers on it. Like I handmade those die cuts, and he was part of like the whole 138 crew, which he ended up, that Misfits thing ended up going into like the grenade stuff and all that kind of shit. But
that's fucking awesome.
So that was like 1996, 97, like West Beach Classic style stuff. That was really fucking cool.
Those were great times, hey?
But I remember Danny back then. And I remember when Danny became real good, like that winter of 2000.
Yeah.
All of a sudden he had the Hawkins that were, 10 feet out of the pipe, which was huge back then.
Right.
But, yeah, Breckenridge. I think that was the first Grand Prix one at Breckenridge.
That's fucking awesome.
Everybody was like, Danny got real good all of a sudden.
Right.
He went from a good kid to like a legit good snowboarder.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's in Florida now.
Really? I thought he was in New York.
Yeah,
I haven't kept up on Danny, so.
Right. Yeah, I don't think he snowboards at all. I'm not sure. I want to get him on the show. But I gotta go to fucking Florida. I only like to do them in person now. I think over the
Have you
phone.
been to Florida?
Yeah, I went when I was a kid.
That place is fucked up. That place is weird.
It's weird, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't notice as a kid. We just went to like Disney World or whatever it is over there.
Yeah, I went a couple of times. I was like, what the fuck is wrong? I didn't realize it was during the whole recession thing. I didn't really understand that. I was in Canada. I was young enough anyway. And I was like, what is wrong with this place? Like, there's giant towns where there's nobody. And like, it was fucking weird.
I think I was looking at houses in Detroit about 10 years ago, and it was like, yeah, like when we say recession up here, nobody loses their house or anything.
Different. I went to Detroit once. We did a snow jam there. Fucking Justin Lamoureux, he shaved the quarter pipe back so it wasn't vert anymore.
Oh no. And
my first hit, just like warm up hit, I hit exactly where he was shaving it, and I launched onto the deck, compressed, like went up, came down, landed on the deck, and launched face first into the flat bottom. My shoulder is still fucked up from this. And the first thing I remember is it was like super segregated. Like, we're in downtown Detroit in the fucking stadium parking lot or whatever. Everybody outside of it is African American. Everybody inside is like hick white.
Oh, God.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just ate shit so fucking hard. And this guy just yells at me, "Get up, pussy." And I was like, you fucking asshole. If you would have done this, you would have died.
Yeah.
And I fucking stood up and then went straight to the hospital.
To the hospital? Was it a separated shoulder?
Yeah, it was just separated shoulder, but I was there for like 8 hours. It was fucking weird.
Sucks.
Saw a lady a lady was dying. A guy was poisoned.
Whoa.
A guy came in stabbed. Another guy came in like fucking all bloody and the cops were on him. It was fucking super crazy.
That's gnarly.
Yeah, it was really gnarly. I had a notebook and was like drawing portraits of all the people and was like, this is fucking super weird.
Yeah, that was probably my first major injury in snowboarding was separated shoulder.
Yeah.
I think I did this
you got
one
droopy shoulders?
Yeah, well, I got those
droopy
nubs
shoulders?
or whatever they are, right? This one is like my leading shoulder is this way, and then the trailing one. I think I did the trailing one first, like dragging my arm. You drag your arm and like kind of hit it,
The old Todd Schlosser landing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I had him on the show. That guy is unfucking believable. Yeah, I just like met him down in Seattle, and he took me to, he's got a studio. Mm-hmm. He's the front man for a really good band. I forget what they're called.
Senate Arcade was one of them.
Yeah, it was.
I don't know what he's in now.
Yeah, I forget. It was something after.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just the nicest guy you've ever met.
Him and I met Todd and Dave Lee. Same thing. Like I met all these people that were like, I was just fucking floored by them when I was younger, you know?
Yeah.
But I met those guys up at summer camp as well, maybe like 2001.
That makes sense. Yeah, Dave Lee's in New York now.
Yeah, I really like Dave.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of these guys in years, but I love them all.
When did you stop? What was the catalyst for stopping?
When did I stop? 2011, 12-ish. The catalyst was this fucking asshole. I can't even remember his name, but he ran that company Bond, and they owed me a shit ton of money. Yeah. And for like a year, I was like, "Hey man, you know, you're starting to owe me quite a bit of money. I just want to make sure you're not going to fucking peace out on this." And he's like, no, don't worry. We'll get it sorted. And then one day he called me. He was like, "I got great news." And I was like, "Oh yeah, what's that?" And he's like, "I got a new job." And I was like, "I don't give a fuck about your new job. Where's my money? Like, what the fuck?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, company's out of business. Like, you're not getting any money."
Oh my God.
And it was just like, I could have kept doing it and doing shit, but that just really fucking, I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, that's a mega bummer.
Like it was like 3 years or 2 years of wages. Like, it was fucking silly. So that was like the catalyst that really like kind of killed everything for me.
Yeah.
It just like, I don't know. It just made me distrust a lot of the people in the industry, I guess, and the way it was kind of going.
Sapped your energy.
Yeah, totally. I was really excited about that company. Like, I had just stopped riding for, I didn't really get dropped. I had a pro model product with Sessions. I don't know if you remember that.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
I know the Sessions line pretty good. TJ Schneider Sessions coat or
Oh, I had coat pants for a couple of years.
that's fucking
But what
awesome.
happened was, and see that company.
I remember them.
I remember same thing. Like when I started snowboarding, obviously Jamie Lynn was huge.
Yeah.
And I was just my style. I think I took more of my style from Jamie Lynn.
Sure.
Like the kind of bow leg knees, like kind of whatever.
Yeah.
But my aspirations of what I wanted to ride like was like Peter. But I remember I made a tape for Sessions. And like this is how important that company was to me, that I never sent it because I never felt like I was good enough to ride for that company.
That's incredible.
You know, I ended up getting on later through Andrew Hicks.
Yeah.
He was the rep and he got me on the team and all that kind of stuff. But I
And did you work directly with Joel then?
yeah.
That's rad.
Yeah, he got me on like the regular team right away. But
Yeah.
I remember Bozung decided to make a return to snowboarding.
Sick.
And my pro model product got dropped for Nate's stuff. And I was like, what the
Oof.
I was like, really? This kid hasn't I love Nate, don't get me wrong. But I was like, this kid hasn't snowboarded in like 3 years. Like what the
Right, he's more of a phenomenon
fuck
than he
is-
is like he's more of a happening than he is.
he's a caricature.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And then I can't remember they owed me some money as well, yada yada yada. And
That's a bummer.
I just didn't want to ride for them anymore. The brand, I mean, Sessions started chasing trends rather than making trends, which was what Sessions did early. Like they had the whole
the Outer Limits jacket that was the first snowboard jacket where it was the one that you wanted. So it had the stripes down the arm. Jamie Lynn wore it. Eventually, the Jamie Lynn jacket was kind of basically that jacket, but he put some of his art on it. But that company was like completely outside what was happening in snowboarding in the early 90s, like 93, 94, 95. They had their own aesthetic.
Yeah.
And fuck, dude,
Sessions
wanted that shit.
Sessions basically had an identity of like, to me anyway, they had an identity of what they were about. It was like black and white and core and independent and really just like, no, you guys can do all that kooky weird shit.
Sure.
And we're just going to do this.
Yeah.
I say that, and then the shit that I made was kooky and weird. But I'll tell you, I made more money wearing that kooky weird shit than I ever made wearing black and white.
Epic.
But then they started chasing the patterns and the shit that was starting to come out then.
They
and I
took
was
a
like,
hiatus for some time and then they came back. So
yeah, they went tits up for a little while there, and then they tried to come back, and then they went out again, and then they tried to come back, and then they went out again.
Yeah, something weird was
now they're
going
back
on there.
again.
Yeah.
Somehow, and I heard Joel's a part of it, and I
Well,
don't know if
early
Cindy
days
still is.
The early days, I mean, fuck, he picked a great team. He had Roach and Rankwit and Sansalom was on that early team.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to Kevin one time, hey, man, I was just at the Superstore and I was looking at Guitar Magazine, and Sessions takes out ads in there because they're also a music shop, and the ad was you. He's like, what? I'm in an ad in a fucking Guitar Magazine? And I just remember Sessions being, because Joel would come up all the time. The boardroom where I worked sold a good amount of Sessions, you know, like it was, and bought it directly from him in California. There wasn't a distributor before.
No.
So then that's how actually we, you know, like that's how we met Andrew, and his wife Stacy was working at the shop for a long time as a buyer. Yeah, and Sessions was going off. I think your stuff, was that at the same time there was like a McConkey pant or something like that? Shea McConkey?
He was a skier guy. Yeah, I don't know.
Skier, yeah. I remember being like, wait, why are they doing a skier guy?
Yeah, it just changed, but I was so excited to get on Bond because at that time I was starting to do a lot of the David Suzuki Foundation, carbon offset, stuff like that, just being more aware of what the fuck's going on. And they came along and were like, oh, we're going to do recycled products and all this other shit. And I was really excited about the company, but then I just got fucked by it.
Where were they made?
I don't fucking know.
China, probably.
Yeah, probably. I think that was the issue, that they had to change factories or some shit and got all fucked up.
The problem with snowboarding is that really there's no, it's not big. It's really small.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so like when you're getting factory time, you're vying for these tiny little chunks So they'll just bump you. And be like, yeah, fuck.
Yeah, they got fucked, but then I got fucked. And then
That sucks so bad.
And I mean, whatever. It was time for me to quit.
So you had pro model stuff on sessions. You quit and you do this bond thing for a couple of years, and they never paid you a check, or
no, they did for a while. I don't
Right.
remember how long I rode for them, but
Right.
then it just kind of it started to. I remember they owed Eddie a bunch of money. They owed Hakey a bunch of money,
oh shit.
and we did a trip. And I remember Eddie was talking about it, and then I was talking to Eddie, and he got paid some money, and I didn't. And
Yeah.
I was just like, man, like I thought I was being super cool about it, but
Right.
sometimes you're like too accommodating, and you just get fucked.
Yeah, that's me for sure. I
What happens? Whatever.
You know what? It is a lesson in like aligning yourself with companies that you know, or that you trust. Fuck, it's hard to do.
Fuck, I'm trying to think. What was my first team manager's name at Sessions? Keith Wilson. He really opened my eyes to something in the industry where I mean I was like a naive kid. As like a business owner, if I've had an employee, I don't pay them the bare minimum. I pay them what I can.
Right.
And if that's, whatever's possible. If I have $20 to pay somebody, I'm going to pay you $20. I'm not going to go, well, I'm going to give you 15 or I'm
Yeah.
going to give you 12
Right.
because that's the legal minimum I can give you.
Right.
I remember maybe a handful of years into my contract with Sessions, and I was talking to Keith, and he was just like, what are you getting paid right now from Sessions? And I told him, and he was like, man, they've had that budgeted for you for like 4 years. And I was just like, I remember those kind of moments just being like, why would anybody do that though? Like if you think I'm worth this much and you can pay me this much, why would you only pay me like a quarter of that?
Right.
Because you can get away with it. Yeah, I don't.
I understand what you're saying.
It may sound like greedy or something like that.
No.
It was one of those moments where I was like, why would people do that? And then moving forward, I tried to align myself with companies that, with Capita and stuff like that, we didn't get paid for a long time, and we turned down offers from a lot of companies just because we believed in what we were doing.
I've spoken with 3 people this year on that Capita tip, right? Tyler, Andrew Burns, and yourself, and all 3 of you were there while Jason was there, right?
Was Burnsy there? Yeah, Burns was there while JB was there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it was such a fucking amazing time for that company.
It was very different. I'll say that. It was. How do you say it? It's not that it was like. For me, it was like kind of life changing. So it changed things. It made snowboarding different.
Right.
Yeah, it was interesting.
You were there during those first few years with the real
like right from the start.
Yeah.
Like I was at the time when Capita launched in Vegas. I was there when they did the whole like time bomb countdown thing. Remember the smoking trade booth?
Yeah.
I rode for a company called Hammer at that time.
I know Hammer.
Andrew was working for them, and same thing. Like it was a team trip, and I had Capita stickers like underneath my bindings, like being like an early adopter of the internet. Same with Jason. Like Jason and I had correspondence over the internet before, and I remember my buddy Mike and I talking to him and being like, we want to be a part of this Capita company, when it was at that time just like a sleeveless t-shirt company.
I love that.
Like I think he wore a sleeveless t-shirt maybe at the end of AMP or something like that. That was like the only Capita product that existed. And we were like, we want to be a part of this. But yeah, I remember wanting to be a part of Capita, and then through the reps, like right at the start there, I got onto them.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the original team was just JB and Seth, and then it was like Jason Brown and Seth, and then pro team like Tyler got on, and right when Tyler got on, I got on.
Incredible.
Like maybe right after that. And then we got a handful of other kids like Luke McMaster, and Burnsy came on through the Ontario reps, and
Rad.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
It's nuts to think of what that company's become now, right?
Yeah, it's really crazy.
Like, you didn't see it back then. I didn't see it back then. It was coming out of that Rev factory, and Rev had gone from New York boards with Apocalypse to like kind of making similar style boards out here with the like textured top sheets.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, okay, Rev had like a killer team.
Mm-hmm.
They had like JP
and Roberta.
and yeah, so many people on that team. JF was on there.
Yep.
And so like, okay, Capita was never like, okay, this is just like Rev now, but it was like, we're building out of this amazing factory that brought you these awesome boards.
Yeah.
And we were like, there were some warranties with those boards.
Yeah.
And that, but
I think we were only there for a year or two.
Yeah.
Maybe towards the second year we got out of Rev.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, I think you bought it. I think that was what happened. I think Rev went out and all the stuff was there, and then you had like a ready-made factory.
Yeah, I don't remember. That wasn't my side of the deal.
Right. Did they start sending you on trips pretty early?
Capita?
Yeah.
First trips I went on were more sessions, and who was I riding for Capita then? Yeah, that would have been that first year. I started traveling that year, like Capita, but I went to Japan with sessions and Ranquet, and which was really cool.
Come on, really? You went on a Japan
my first
trip
trip
with
to Japan
Ranquet?
was with Ranquet. Yeah, which was really fucking cool. I think one of my first ads also is a photo with Mike Ranquet. There's a shop in Japan that maybe like 15 years ago I went in there, and they still had a poster in the walkway up the stairs of like Ranquet and I that was signed. And I tried to go there the last time I was in Japan, but they were closed. It was like a 4-day bank slalom weekend. Next time I go to Japan, I'm gonna go and see if that poster is still there.
That's so sick. Yeah.
There's a couple of shops just from like shop tours and shit like that where we had stuff.
When you would ride with Ranquet back in those days, what was his mode?
That was the only time I rode with Ranquet. We did a couple of park days, which were not his thing. Like we hit a couple of jumps, but he didn't give a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember I fucked up. I should have went with him. We were pretty close to Hakuba, and he was like, dude, it just snowed like a foot. This was before I really understood powder snowboarding. Like, I'm an Alberta kid. We don't get powder.
Right.
Or, well, we did, but we didn't really ride it. We were park kids. And he's like, I'm going to Hakuba, like, tomorrow morning. Like, you should come. And I was just like, why? Like, I don't get it. Like, I'm going to shoot photos in the park. Like, why would I go to Hakuba? This doesn't make any sense to me. But that was the only time I really rode with Ranquet, I think. Probably, like, here and there or whatever, but actually him and I.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got to meet him through the show. And then he came up to Baker, and we spent a day riding and hanging out, smoking weed. And
I heard on one of the episodes somebody mentioned that movie Botched. I own that Botched video, the Lamar Botched video.
Oh, yeah.
Which had like Gilligan Yoder and fucking Saba or whatever the fuck
how
his name
funny is that?
But Ranquet and the year that he had like the year before that, there was another Lamar video where he was doing all the buttery shit.
Yeah.
And I was just like, who the fuck is this guy? He's so good. He's so... And then I went to on a trip with him, and I was like, you're so fucking good.
He is
But
so
he was
good.
like, he was like an older dude at that time, you know?
Yeah.
Like it would be like me going on a trip now. You know, he wasn't really like super pro still, but he's still a name,
not
but he's,
after it.
but he's fucking Mike Ranquet. He's like...
Yeah, exactly.
He's like Gordie Howe.
Yeah, totally. Well, like my first exposure to Ranquet was he was on a GNS board. He had a pro model on GNS that was one of the first twin boards, and he was doing switch threes. Yeah, in like '91 maybe.
Yeah, that's like right when I started snowboarding. God, it was so cool.
Yeah, it was nuts, dude. And because I think. Anybody who's in any sport, we've talked about this on the show a little bit before too. Like when basketball first blew up, to have been there at that moment would have been fucking dope, man. You know what I mean? But to see snowboarding when, as an enthusiast, you could put together a tape of you, and you could send it to your favorite companies, and you might just strike it rich. You might just like get a free board at least.
You know what's crazy
not
though?
happening
Even
now.
when I was snowboarding, whenever I went to Blue's house, I would sit and watch a stack of Sponsor Me tapes.
Right.
I loved that. Like
Right.
that's the whole reason I started the Snowboard Realms stuff. I loved that kind of stuff. I loved like seeing those kids that were coming up. I remember watching Scott Stevens like Sponsor Me tape when he was riding the
Sick.
academy, and I remember George was like, dude, come watch this. And he showed me, and I was like, what the fuck? This kid, because it was different snowboarding.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I think I saw Bodie Merrill post a thing yesterday that was like, some people will say this isn't real snowboarding. He did like a shove it late flip on his snowboard. And he's like, but I'm having fun and I'm having a good time. And
Yeah.
that's what snowboarding is to me. And I remember some of the guys being like, nope, like this kid isn't good. He's not snowboarding.
Right.
You know, some of the people were like, no, this isn't snowboarding.
Sure.
This isn't good snowboarding. And I remember George and I just being like, dude, this kid's gonna be something.
Yeah. Rad.
Yeah. I mean, look
You
at him
called
now.
it. Yeah. Exactly.
Like I say, I used to love that stuff. I used to like.
Oh man.
I used to pick kids and be like, Dustin, you're riding for Capita now.
Right.
You know. And like,
Yeah.
that kid, you're riding for KU. The same shit that, I mean, Andrew Hicks did the same thing with me. All those guys from the summer camp, like Sansloan, Hicks, Roberta, Dre, Picard, Bannock, those guys were like,
That kid.
come here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come here.
Yeah.
You're like, even Trevor Andrew, like, he was one of my first coaches, and
Rad.
him and I were the same age though. Like, it was a little different.
Yeah.
So it was like cool. We went and shot some photos with Dano. I remember I fell and I was so bummed. Couldn't get a photo.
I'm looking at you. I'm so the opposite of that. I went to summer camp and they were like, "You are in the beginner group."
Yeah, no.
I'm like, "Oh, but I'm here to get sponsored. I can ollie 3 boards." They're like, "You are a beginner. You don't know how to turn your board."
No, that was a cool time for snowboarding. It was just like,
So cool.
I mean, I tried to keep my snowboarding like that for the whole thing. I tried not
Fun.
to subscribe too much to the like. I got asked to film or involved with filming one of the big videos one year, and this was right at the start of my snowboarding stuff, and I really realized that wasn't my
Wow.
thing. Yeah, it was the first real video that I was like asked to film for, and I was just like, we were at spots and it was just not the same vibe. I wasn't snowboarding with, like, they were, don't get me wrong, all the dudes were cool.
Yeah.
All the guys are super rad. They were amazing snowboarders, amazing people, but they weren't my group of friends. For me, snowboarding was in Alberta, snowboarding with Scott and Dwayne and Carter and those guys, and that was what snowboarding was to me. And that's when I had fun, and when I had fun, I did good. With those guys, I was nervous and trying and scared and
Okay.
like, not that it was outside my comfort zone. I was just like scared of not impressing them enough.
Right.
And then there was a couple of phone calls that were like, when you're ready to make some real money, call me. And I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, we're going to spots and people are complaining about how much a sponsor is paying them and how this one's not buying them a car or this one's not doing that. And I was like, this is very different than why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I'm just really excited to be here,
Right. I think we talked about it at the beginning too. Like, there's a different pace to filming, way different.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even like I got to ride Sunshine with Terrier and Nico beginning of the year last year.
That's fucked
Super
up.
fun. But just to get their Instas, they're riding at that like kind of lazy speed. Okay, hold up, and stopping and setting up cameras. Not cameras, your phone. You know what I mean? And I'm really comfy at that speed. I'm fine going up on a day when it's not perfect and finding a little spot that looks really perfect and setting up a little dumb jump and getting a picture of me in the air. Like, I'm fine with that.
I mean, for me, it was just the conversations about money and somebody. I know that, like, I say that the money, a company kind of fucking me was what eventually kind of pushed me out of it. But at that time, like, we were I was getting paid virtually nothing from sessions, but I was stoked to be on the team. Like I said, one of the first tapes that I had was to go to them. So to ride for them was a big deal for me. With Capita, like, we were building something. It was something, if you look at a lot of the early interviews, even with Seth, like, he was like, this is something that's different. We're building something. We believe in this. Like, we really believe in this. And so when other people were telling me I should drop them because I'm not making enough money, I was like, what? This is like, don't you believe in the companies that you ride for? Is it just literally about the biggest paycheck? And looking back at it now, I'm stupid. I should have taken a lot of those big paycheck offers, you know, like I would have made more money in 1 year than I made my entire career.
Right.
But, you know, that wasn't what it was about. It was about like believing in the product and working like hands-on with the stuff that you're doing. And that first year of filming was just like, no, this isn't for me at all. And I don't think I never really made a video part that I was like really stoked on. It wasn't something that I ever focused on or really wanted to be doing.
So what are you doing in these years as you're a pro snowboarder? You're riding.
I mean, I filmed a little bit. I shot some photos. I traveled a lot. I did a handful of contests. I did the contests that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And that was great. And I won contests, and
Sick.
sometimes I lost them. But
yeah.
For the most part, if I went in a contest, typically I'd win something.
Rad.
So, I mean, that was
What are some of the big ones?
that I won or
Yeah,
whatever.
or either.
I don't even know. I won a bunch of stuff in Japan.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd always did good at the Grenade Games and the West Coast, whatever that thing is called, and
Yeah.
the Honda session down in I think that was in Colorado. I did a handful of contests, and I always had a good time.
Rad.
It was like, I don't know, it was just, I didn't take them too seriously. I just had fun. Like Blue would always be like, I don't know how you do this. Like, you show up at a contest, you always skip the practice, and then you always do really well. And I was like, well, because if I just figure it out while I'm doing it, then I'm having more fun, and I'm not really thinking about the whole process. I'm just kind of winging it, and that's how I do better. I just have fun rather than trying to like psych myself up.
Well, a lot of times I'll find my first few runs are the best. You got fresh legs.
Yeah.
You're not afraid of
Yeah.
anything. You kind of intuit the speed,
Yeah.
and so you're more likely to go towards the end of the landing as opposed to like back it off
I
a
would
little.
literally, like, if we're talking about like a jib contest, I'd show up like as the contest was starting. I wouldn't really, maybe like, you know, do a couple of runs through at the start of the day or something like that. But
Yeah.
and then you just go, okay, that guy did something good. I have to go do something good right there.
Yeah.
Or do something better than him. Do that, and then you're like, okay, do something over there. And I would always be wearing like some bright, weird fucking shit, which, you know, when you're standing at the bottom, people would be like, who's that weirdo?
Yeah. Yeah.
It always worked.
That's fun, man. That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people get to where you are now, which is 10 years out from your career, 9 years out from your career, and they think, you know, fuck, I could have made so much more money, or I could have this, I could have that. But a lot of times they had a I don't even know what the fuck I'm trying to say.
I remember, you remember the company M3?
I do.
Which was fucking, boy, it was like Mikey, Chad Otterstrom.
Salaz was in there at one point. Salaz, his last
Really?
sponsor was in there.
Well, anyway, so I remember, I don't know if they were going out of business or what was happening, but I remember when a rider, I won't say his name just because you never know, he might not like that. A rider was like leaving M3, which was at the time like such a fucking cool company, to ride for what would be considered a corporate company. Granted, this corporate company had been there from the start. Not a Solomon, but like more corporate company.
Yeah.
And I remember, I don't think I asked him, but somebody said something like, why would you leave this company? Why would you leave M3 to go ride for this sort of ski corporate company?
Yeah.
And he was like, when I die, or when I'm done snowboarding, he's like, nobody's going to care who I rode for. He's like, nobody's going to go, oh, you were so core, you were so this, you were so that. He's like, but when I'm done snowboarding, I'll have a house that I own, and I'll have security, and I'll have, you know, money saved up, and I'll have some security for my family, rather than, you know, rather than being like, I was core. Like, I look back at my snowboarding career and I'm like, dude, I was core. I didn't ride for, I rode for Oakley for goggles, but for a while, but I stayed with Sessions for a long time, even though I was getting ridiculous numbers from other companies. And I stayed with Capita even for free when I was getting ridiculous numbers from other companies, and, you know, calls from companies when I was younger that I was like, I want to ride for this team. And they were like, and the owners or the team managers were calling me being like, well, look at where this guy is now. He's, you know, now that he's not on our team, and you can be that guy. And I was like, you know what, man, like, I'm going to stay here. I'm not getting paid any money, but I believe in this.
That's incredible.
Which is super good feeling to say, but
yeah.
No,
I think we're touching on something that's really important, right? Like in skateboarding and in snowboarding, the sellout factor, because it's at some point it's going to come down to it. Like, do you want to ride? You'd rather ride for a company that's got someone at the helm that's like, look, I really can't fucking pay you because I can barely pay myself. Yeah. But this company is going to send you on trips, or we make the best product, or there's something about it that you're like, okay, well, I'd rather ride your stuff than, you know, that corporate money stuff and have a house. Because like when you buy a house, now you've got this whole other responsibility. And
it was super interesting. I remember, because I come from that wave of skateboarding. Remember when Nike tried to come into skateboarding the first time, and people were like, get the fuck out of here, you don't belong here. Right. And then Nike tried to come into snowboarding, and people were like, get the fuck out of here, you don't belong here. You know, they made that boot with Michael Chuck, and people were like, fuck off. Yeah. And then Nike came around again, and they hired guys like Bobby Meeks, and they hired all these really great riders. They had Danny, and they had Gigi, and they had, you know, Nico, all these guys that were like, and they made arguably one of the best snowboard boots ever made to that point in time, right? Like, I mean, it was great. Like, it had that different kind of sole that you could actually walk in, like beautiful boot, like comfy, light, nice. But around that time, things sort of changed. That I remember saying to somebody, because kids like Jed, who were typically a core snowboard kid or core skateboard kid, you know, cool as fuck, came along and started riding for Solomon and started riding for Nike and was riding. And I remember looking at it and being like, there really isn't a sellout anymore. The culture changed. Like, our generation would consider it, you're a little bit older than me, but still my generation would be like, when I was a kid anyway, would be like, this is selling out. Sure. But those kids, when they were their age, at my age, whatever, I don't know how to say that, that didn't, it changed. And I think the guy who left M3 started changing that mentality of like, I don't know, a little bit more business minded. Right. Or I don't know how to say it, but it just seemed like the sellout changed. You know, it's not the same as what we thought a sellout was when we were like fucking 12 or 13.
Well,
or 14.
also these like mottos, and I think like I'm thinking of no friends on a powder day, and how that kind of encapsulated a certain time in the industry. You know, like no friends on a powder. It's kind of a snaky thing actually, to be like, okay, you would ditch your friends to go get fresh tracks. Okay, why? That's shitty.
That's like what's their names, like Stepchild do a bunch of boards like that, like Powder Sucks and stuff like
Powder
that.
Sucks was
Ride
definitely
did a bunch of shit.
Ride did that one stuff. I'm thinking like there was so much subversion in the beginning, right? Like Ride was the original sellout as far as I'm concerned. Like I can remember those boards were better if they hadn't been as good as they were, because the first year they came out like spark plugs and shit, they looked terrible.
Really, you'd say Ride was
The original sellout, because they were
Ride
like,
was so
we're
cool
gonna
when
make
I was young, though,
we're
with,
gonna
like-
make so much money, we're gonna go public, we're gonna sell the company, and we're gonna make that loot because snowboarding is hot right now. And then they came in, and their stock was like, Wall Street Journal, and like on the TV it was like snowboarding, the latest super sport.
The year
or
I
whatever.
started snowboarding was the first year of Dale Rayberg, fucking
Russ Winfield,
I can't
Jake
remember.
Blattner.
Yeah, it was the year where they had the like Fat Albert boards, the Tweety Bird
Jason
board,
Ford,
and the Cat and stuff like that. Those were so fucking cool.
They were
See,
badass.
maybe did they sell out the year before that?
No. That was it. That was the year. So the
it's
thing
like it
was
too
the
new to
original
snowboarding to
sellout
understand
thing.
that.
But at the time, it was just like the wool was being pulled over everybody's eyes. Like as a kid in the shop, I was like a Burton guy. I'm like, Burton is Jake Burton, and and LibTech is Mike Olson, and these crazy dudes from Mervyn who are just like the most fun people to hang out with in the world, because they're just so creative and don't give a fuck. And if someone says, oh, that won't work, they're like, okay, we're going to make a board that bends at a 90-degree angle that's an L shape, just because we can. And then Ride came in and was like, we're going to be this corporate entity that sells and goes public. But then their boards came out and their bindings, and I went from being like, oh, this is a sellout company, to being like, ooh, these bindings are the best. They're better than those Burton bindings. Everybody wanted them, and those boards were like so sick.
Never really paid it. I mean, once I got sponsored, I never really paid attention to anything else other than the companies, other than maybe Forum.
Yeah.
Because Peter was cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, whatever.
That was a cool time too. Well, I mean, again, you can look at Forum as like another, like it was a sellout thing.
Marketing, and
it was just like, we're going to do marketing. Yeah.
They created like S Club 7 for snowboarding.
Exactly. Right. And at first,
they should have made that an MTV TV show, the Forum 7, or was it
Forum 8? Yeah, it would have been amazing.
They fucking would have killed it.
That would have been insane.
Yeah,
that would have been epic.
Just imagine the superstardom of JP Walker. Had he?
Yeah.
I mean, he was huge in snowboarding, but he could have been like Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber.
Totally. Duff would have done all right in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The young heartthrob. He would have been the
exactly.
Yeah, he would have been the baby. I'm just trying to think of like all the little documentaries I've seen about how to make a good band.
Yeah.
Like where you take like a K-pop band and everyone has their thing. Like Peter could have been the weird artist, like
completely.
Ville, Ville's like your foreign, like like assassin, kind of like, I'm mysterious.
Yeah, they could play it up.
JP could have been the bling guy.
Oh, totally.
Fucking Duff is the baby.
Dev's the Canadian.
Yeah.
The true North guy.
You got to have your token Canadian.
Unreal, dude. Yeah, that's fun. I've been talking with Devin about doing a snowboard series like Jerry Seinfeld's Comedian in Cars, Getting Coffee. Except Devin shows up at your house and then you guys go to whatever mountain you want to go to.
Snowboarding?
Yeah.
That'd be pretty rad. Is Devin still snowboarding full time?
No.
Like, what does he do now?
He is a dad.
Exists? Really?
Yeah. And he still gets paid. He's an ambassador for DC. So he still is a professional snowboarder. But he doesn't know what he's going to do. I mean,
That's a scary thing.
We talked about it a little off mic, and he's like, he's not 100% sure where to go. He's got an entrepreneurial mind for sure. But
I remember it might have been like, one of the very first days that I rode for Capita. Blue said like a couple of things to me, and one of them was like, you got to remember that at some point this is going to end.
Wow.
And he was like, I mean, we always talked about Capita making us rich. We were like, this company's going to make us rich. Like, don't worry, this is going to be awesome. We're going to be great. Like, it seems like it's doing that now. I'm sure they're not rich, but whatever.
Somebody is.
But then so when I was snowboarding, the whole time I was like, okay, this is going to end. What am I going to do next? Like, that's why I got into doing so much design and product stuff with each company. And that's why I started doing the Realm stuff. That's why I started doing all the shit that I did snowboarding rather than just being like a snowboard kid. Because I think my snowboard skills were probably like here, but then the value of maybe being a part of the companies brought me sort of more up higher.
Sure.
You know, from product design or like graphics or whatever.
Right. Yeah, no, that's
input.
That's a really important part.
Helping with like trying to develop a team, or, you know, what do we do with this guy? Like, do we keep him on, or what do we do? Or sitting down and talking about those things.
That's incredible that he said it that early on.
It was super early on. I remember there was that, and then there was one other thing that actually really fucked with me for a long time that made me really self-conscious about snowboarding. This was right when I got on Capita. He was like, things are going to change for you. He's like, now when you roll up to a spot, people are going to go, that's that snowboarder, you know, that's that kid. And they're going to sit back and they're going to watch you.
Right.
And if you don't impress them, they're going to go, that kid sucks.
Oh, God.
And man, that fucked with me because
that's terrible.
Forever, I'd roll up in a park and I'd be like, fuck, dude, I'm not that dude.
I'm not that guy.
I'm the guy who's bouncing around in the trees being like, Dewey, you know, like yelling and super stoked and not breathing because I'm having too much fun. But I'm not the kid who's going to typically show up and be like, holy fuck, that guy is incredible.
I don't really think anybody had to be that. Like,
no,
I remember
that wasn't what it was for me.
Like
so
Peter Line, like, because you see him ride at Baker still. Like, he's not, you don't have to go and watch him go. Even Jamie Lynn, when you see him riding, he's just riding for himself. He's maybe whistling,
I find that
having
hard
a good
to believe.
time.
Peter and Jamie, they just float on their magic.
We'll never meet your heroes. That's the big thing, is that they really do crash a lot. And, well, maybe not Jamie Lynn. They ride really fast. They're really fucking great. But the story I'm thinking of, and I've told it before again, is that Peter, we thought as the boardroom, we're like, we're going to put on a quarter pipe contest in BC Place for the snow show. Let's get Peter Line up here. And we said, well, obviously he needs money, so we'll make a cash prize of 10 grand. Then he'll for sure come up for that. And he said, if you pay me 10 grand, I will come. But I'm certainly not coming to a contest where I'm going to lose and some little kid is going to win 10 grand and everyone's going to say, Peter Line fucking sucks.
I mean, I say that it's interesting because I did a handful of contests and I'd place well at contests. So, you know, that's people judging you. But then it was different in a lot of instances, like things like Team Challenge and stuff like that, where it didn't feel like you were judging. It was just more about riding and having fun. That's what just snowboarding was about.
Those are the events.
It was about it was just about having a good time.
Yeah, snowboarding's kind of fucked right now because there's only one contest series, really, and it's the Dumb Olympics. It's every 4 years. And that's the only thing that's like really like worth going after. And if you're going after that, and I don't know anything about snowboarding is what it comes down to. I'm sure there's cool shit that you could do. You could do bank slaloms for no money. But if you're going to do the Olympics, you're going to get like McDonald's as a sponsor or somebody big.
You know, I tried out I wanted to do the 2010 Olympics, not because I was a half pipe rider, because I certainly was not.
Right.
But because I got sick of my grandma always going, when are you going to get a real job?
Yeah.
You know, my cousin's like a yoga superstar, and he'd be on like in the newspaper, and my grandma would have it posted up on her fridge and be like, look at your cousin, he's on the newspaper. And I'd be like, I'm on the cover of an international magazine with a 12-page interview, and and you still think I don't have a real job, you know? And so I was like, I remember Dustin Craven and I, we drove from up north and we came down to Cypress and did the qualifying contest. I think I got 6th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I totally could have done it.
Yeah.
And then I went up to, I did the training camp out in Mammoth, and I was feeling good. I was feeling excited. I was like riding pretty good. And then the U.S. coach, he was like, "What's your name again?" I was like, "TJ." He's like, "Dude, you're riding great." And I dropped in a couple times later, and I was my run. I wanted to do like air to fakie. I was gonna learn cab 10 like double corks into front 10 double corks and something else.
Yeah.
And I just warmed up with like a cab spin, and I lost it, and I cased the lip with my ass,
Oof.
and I blew out like my sciatic.
Oh no.
Holy fuck. And I didn't know how to fix that. I didn't know what was going wrong.
Right.
So that kind of ended that. But Dustin ended up making it to the first alternate at the
Good for
Olympics.
him.
You know,
Yeah.
and I feel like I probably could have done it.
Yeah.
I mean, Lamoureux made it. So sorry, Justin, I love you, but
So you could have competed.
everybody's going, ooh, burn.
Shots fired.
No. But anyway.
No, so you did have those aspirations.
No,
I think
it wasn't-
2010.
It wasn't like an aspiration.
It was
like, it's in Canada. My
Yeah.
grandma would
Yeah,
watch it.
Yeah.
It would be fucking cool.
Yeah.
We went to Japan instead. Road powder.
Yeah. That's the deal. I think that's the thing that people don't get, right? Regular people,
Mm-hmm.
is that the Olympics really doesn't mean that much to snowboarding. It didn't really give.
I mean, now it probably does.
Does it though?
I don't know.
Actually, that's not true. I shouldn't say.
I mean,
does it, though.
look at Sage. Like Sage was. I remember the first time seeing him in Calgary and just being like, God damn, talking to his mom. I was like, he's really fucking good. And he was relatively a nobody, and then he won the fucking Olympics.
Right.
Sean became something different after winning all his Olympics.
Yeah, he was winning everything anyways.
Mm-hmm.
He was that next Terrier thing.
Well, thinking about it, because when did it started in '98? The Olympics, right?
Yeah.
Trevor was there.
Yeah.
Michael Chuck. Those guys didn't. I guess they didn't win, but neither John Simon. He didn't really become.
Oh, somebody's told me that he's done really, really well.
Well, yeah, I'm sure in like Europe, you know what I mean? But
in his home country.
maybe it was just that it changed because an American won the Olympics. You know,
I heard Todd Richard talk about the fact that when snowboarding came into the Olympics, not that first year, but the second year, they swept the half pipe, right? Like it was Danny Cass got second.
Ross Powers.
Ross Powers won. I can't remember who got third. Listeners are shouting at the thing.
Yeah, it was J.J. Thomas.
Right. So they swept it, and then that was it. It was like, this is our sport. We own this fucking shit.
When Hakey showed up with the Mohawk.
Yeah,
Salt Lake
that's right.
City.
Yeah.
That was the coolest fucking move ever.
That was. It was.
See, and that's the thing is like guys like Hakey, like I love that kid, and he embodied that idea of like what a core snowboard. Even though he rode for like Burton and all these other things, but he was so.
It's funny. I've lately been going back at like railing a bit against Devin for sure, against the idea that Burton was like not core. Burton was elite. It was just hard to get on.
Yeah,
because it was like Burton. You know what I mean?
Burton's like Shaun White, where he's like, these are the best, and you kind of have to hate on the best.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
I mean,
I hear
it's
you.
like.
But Burton's
they were the big dog. They were
right.
They're an independent.
But Burton's also Mikey Rentz. You know what I'm saying? Rentz has been on there forever. Like Burton has been doing the right thing alongside with this other thing that they're forced to do because they're the biggest one in the industry.
I just watched Mikey's movie last night.
Powhounds.
Yeah,
so cool.
I remember seeing Mikey 8 years old.
Yeah, as
7 years old.
a kid.
Like,
right.
I was thinking, like I remember seeing McHale when he was maybe 12.
Yeah.
You know, what's his name? Solars. I remember seeing his first Sponsor Me tape. I think.
No.
Yeah, a buddy of ours gave me his Sponsor Me tape when he was still living in Kelowna and was like, "You should check out this kid."
That's so
and
amazing.
like I had his Sponsor Me tape.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and it's cool to watch those kids now and be like, "Yeah, fuck, they're good.
Oh yeah,
they're real good."
Yeah, fuck yeah, that's so sick.
Yeah.
But so now I'm defending Chinese factories. And I think that I think every snowboarder on the planet owes Burton something. I don't know what it is, but I feel like they did the right thing a lot of times. They're just easy to hate on because they also make camping gear or whatever.
I don't even know what else they make. But yeah, it's just they're the easy one to pick on.
Yeah, totally. But if they would have dropped a giant check in front of your face.
Did Burton? No, Burton never offered me anything. No.
Michael Blanc talked about
I don't
offer.
think I ever would have. Like I said, when we started riding for Capita, when that company came along, it was such an anti-established brand. You know, we were like the opposite of.
Oh
Burton.
yeah.
So, I mean, the whole thing that Jason had with like complete creative control idea, like those were the original stickers, like complete creative control, that sort of stuff was.
Well, at that same time, Rome was starting up, and Rome was similarly people that had left Burton.
Mm-hmm.
There was a real feeling of like there's this exodus from Burton. Like I remember talking to Mike Stiskel, he left Burton and joined Ride as the creative director. And like there was like this thing about being from Burton, but we're leaving, and now we're going to make something that's just not that. Right? And definitely Capita. I remember Capita and Rome kind of side by side in that.
I think Rome started at the end of our first season.
Yeah.
It started a year
Yeah,
after.
it would have been a year after for sure. And then they had M3 clothing or something. Mission 6, that's what it was. Mission 6
was those
clothing.
guys.
Yeah, same guys. And it was sick.
That was around for a long time before Rome.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, my friend Adam rode for them.
They were sick. I had that stuff, and it was their materials were really light and like comfortable. It was good shit. I remember that. When
this is just like opening these old little cellars in my brain. I'm like, oh yeah, that.
Yeah, well, that's what this whole show is really for me. It's just reliving those days that were so fucking. It was so cool to go to a trade show, and Jason Brown has a diorama that he's built out of art supplies.
He didn't make those.
He didn't?
No.
Where do you get those?
It was the Human 5 guys made those.
Human 5s.
Yeah, Mike and Simon. At that time, it was I believe it was Mike and Simon, and then it was Mike, Simon, and Jarrett, and then Ty joined the Human 5.
Right.
Yeah.
There was a real art component to that.
Yeah, that's what made Capita interesting. That was like my first time ever really being around people that were artists.
Right.
You know, it was people who were like sitting down and creating something out of nothing.
Right.
And that's what I think made Capita really interesting. It was a lot of ideas.
Totally.
There was a lot of ideas always floating around, and we weren't really ever afraid to do things that were different. Like, I remember our boards at the start, like they didn't even say Capita on them. You know, I think the first Capita board that actually said it on the bottom was a board that I made called like the Midlife Little Birds, and it had a giant Capita base on it. And I remember Blue being like, dude, this is not cool. Like, he was like, that is not cool. And then he was like, later he was like, but you can actually tell what kind of snowboard you're on. And he was just like, he didn't like it at start. I think he was like, this is not a very good snowboard graphic. Like the color pattern, he was like, the colorway didn't work. And then he was like, at the end of that year, he was like, but I can see what kind of board you're riding. And then we started doing the Stairmaster boards with just like the giant Capita base. And now tons of them just say Capita, super big on the bottom. Because it was like, we were like anti-logo at the start. It was more art-based. All our board graphics were like art pieces. Who
did that skull for the Blackboard of Death?
Ephraim. Yeah, Ephraim, I think he still does like art direction for Capita. I think that there's a couple of different stories. Like the one story that was like, it was so overtly Black and Death.
Yeah.
It was making fun of the Black and Death craze.
I heard that. I heard that from the reps or whatever.
From JB, I think he was like, I just wanted a skull on a snowboard. You know what I mean? Like, I remember having this conversation with Jason and just being like, well, you know, some people, you got to make a story. Like sometimes that's just what happened, doesn't work.
Right.
You got to create a story or I don't know. I wasn't a part of those conversations, but
that's smart.
Falls somewhere in the middle. You know?
You could see where he would take some of that because he was the original with the original Burton 7 crew, right?
Yeah, with the original 7 decks with the skull on it.
Yeah.
So
it's
which
like,
was fucking insane. Remember when that came out and it was like, what the fuck is that? I have to have. I never had it.
Yeah.
But
I didn't even know anyone
so
who had
cool.
it. Yeah. Like I can remember when I quit at the boardroom. The first thing I did was go to the Burton sample sale, and I bought like Burton pants. Actually, not even Burton pants. Ronin. Remember they did Ronin? I was like, like this is made for me. Like they were making shit that didn't have Burton on it to intentionally.
Well, Jason was a part of that, like the original analog stuff, which I think Trevor then took over.
Right.
Yeah,
that shit's sick.
Like those were like his brainchilds, like the 7 crew and the you know. So look what they became. With
And then
all
he
the
just
geeky stuff.
realized, okay, we can do that. I can do this, and it can be my company.
Yeah, I have
shouldn't
no
be
idea. I
selling
have
this
no
away.
idea what his motive to start Capita was. I mean, imagine how different Capita would have been if Kevin Jones would have stayed on the brand, you know,
Right,
instead
right.
of going to Genius. Like when he
Yeah.
did that, there was an X Games interview, and Kevin's like holding one of the original Kevin Jones
Capita boards.
I
Yeah.
think the Black Snowboard of Death was
That's what it
supposed to
was.
be
Yeah,
KJ's pro model.
that's fucked
But
up.
he had one of the ones that was like the blue and the white and maybe a little bit of shit on the top sheet. You know, that company would have been so different.
It would have been completely different, and probably Kevin's trajectory would have been, or just the.
I mean,
the
who knows?
rest
It's all
of his career.
speculation.
Yeah,
Maybe Capita would have been out of business by now, or maybe it would have.
yeah, he
gone
might
to
have
the
been
moon and,
expensive,
you know,
right? Yeah,
Who
yeah.
knows?
Well, that's probably why he didn't join, because he was already
Yeah,
past.
he was probably getting a big
Well,
check.
I talked with him about his contract because when I met him in '93 or '94, summer '94, and he was talking about, you know, he was like 3 years into a 7-year contract with Lamar. 7 years.
Oh yeah, he was a Lamar guy.
Yeah, he signed a 7-year contract with Lamar. And it just, like, think about how much changed between 1992 and 1999.
You know what's fucked up is right now I'm just sort of realizing how fucked up my life has been. The fact that like we're talking about these guys and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm actually a part of a lot of this.
Right.
And just sort of all of a sudden realizing like, what the fuck happened? Where?
What do you mean, what the
I'm just
fuck
saying
happened?
like it doesn't even seem real. It's like I'm watching a webisode of my own fucking life
Right.
for a second.
Right, because you have...
I mean,
you're
it's that thing of like, I have this one customer that comes in every once in a while, and he's this incredible guy who's done everything, seen everything, been a part of like he saw Bob Dylan in the 60s. He saw Jimi Hendrix play. He saw the Beatles. He's seen everybody. And one day we were just talking about life and how to deal with relationships and work and everything. And he's like, you know what? He's like, do everything crazy when you're young. He's like, because one day you'll wake up, you'll look in the mirror and go, holy shit, I'm 67 years old.
Wow.
And it's fucked up because it's like, man, like 18 to 23 felt like a lifetime. 23 to now felt like a snap.
Oh,
and
right.
so I can't even, like, I met Kevin Jones, I met all these guys, and I know all these dudes, and I mean, I don't know if they still know who I am or you know,
of course they do.
But like, I remember seeing KJ in Whistler and being like, oh, dude, blah, 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 you know, and this kind of shit. But now it doesn't even seem real. I have all these memories, but they seem kind of made up, but
hear ya.
not. I mean, these are the faults of the brain. I'm probably half of them are. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. No, I've been going down that rabbit hole. I'm pretty convinced that we live in a fucking simulation. I'm pretty convinced.
Flat Earths.
I'm not a flat earther.
Oh my god! I watched a video on Flat Earth the other day, and I was like, no, seriously. This morning when I was walking to my car to go, I was like, okay, so these Flat Earth, or it wasn't it was yesterday when I was walking to get donuts.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so people believe in Flat Earth. I'm like, is it that they think that we're actually in a simulation, or is it they think that there's we're the Truman Show or whatever that movie is,
Right.
or is it that they just think the Earth is flat? I don't know. I don't care. Whatever. You believe in Flat Earth, cool. Whatever.
If we were in a simulation, wouldn't it make sense that we would have to fall asleep every 24-hour cycle? So that they'd have access to our, like, if you fucked up on this day, you could only fuck up one day. Like, and that's why I'm saying, you remember your life as though, did that really happen?
Yeah,
Because all you really know that happens is today, right?
Yeah,
and yesterday, you can kind of remember the Cardigo thing.
There's that new movie or that new TV show, like Life with Me or Life.
Oh, is that Paul Rudd? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like he has all the memories,
Haven't
but
seen
the
it.
guy doesn't really have all the memories. He's just like a simulation.
Right.
I don't know. It just had like a weird moment there where I was like, this doesn't seem real. And then if I start thinking back on like the stuff, like the early Snowboard Realms stuff and getting into like the web shit and just like nobody was doing that. And it's like,
Yeah, let's
how the
talk about
fuck
it.
did any of this even start? It's weird.
So talk about the Snowboard Realm stuff. What prompted you to do it? Did it come out of your brain?
So what happened was I did the Mac Dog thing, which was that first year of filming, and I was just like, this is not my thing. And I met Mikey LeBlanc, and he did the Kids Know stuff, which just seemed to be more of like a DIY. They were like, we're doing it in digital, which was, people were like, you don't make snowboard films in digital. And,
Right.
And that just felt more organic and more real and more core. Like they weren't, it didn't matter so much about like a sketchy landing. It was just like about creating kind of an individual of like who you are. And then flash forward a little bit, we made the Capita video. We made First Kiss, which again was more of an art film. It was more about taking hold of our own, to me anyway, it was more about taking hold of our own identity and creating something that showed who we were, rather than just being like, you're a snowboarder, you fit into this J.P. Solberg sort of square of what a snowboarder is. There was that time period where every company was like, I want J.P. Stolberg because he's fucking an incredible snowboarder, but we want everybody to be like a carbon copy of him. So Capita, the First Kiss movie came out, and it was all about remembering why we snowboarded and that feeling of a first kiss and that feeling of snowboarding and a family and like the family vibe that Capita had. So when that ended, I remember we were driving home from Seattle, me and my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, I think I want to start a little snowboard thing that I have that control that Jason was talking about with Capita. About, there was a video, one of Anthony's videos, I can't remember what it was called, Whiteout or maybe something like that. And the intro to my part was like army men.
Oh yeah.
There's like I'm vaguely piecing this together. It was like army men, and I was like, I don't identify with what they're putting my name on.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is something that's important to me. Snowboarding was very important. It was like my creative outlet. It was who I was. And then I gave who I was to somebody else to put together to give to you to say who I am.
Got it.
And I was like, I don't like this. I want the ability to be who I am and make what I am and share what I think. And that's where the Realms, like, it kind of did a little bit of everything. It did art. It talked to riders I liked. And I don't know, that's where it came from, was just about creating like your own product and giving kids your snowboarding rather than charging them for your snowboarding. Like
right.
all the kids that were my fans or whatever, they gave me this crazy life that I had. And I remember saying to Blue, I was like, it doesn't make any sense that we're charging kids money for our promotional material and then asking them to also buy our snowboards.
Right.
Like, why don't we just give them all of our stuff, and then, you know, hopefully they identify with us and we connect with them and we like make friendships and we be real humans rather than, you know, I know all the big pro snowboarder guys, but I remember at that time, like if I messaged one of them, they would never respond to me.
Really?
You know? And it was I'm like, you're actually my friend.
Right.
And then I wanted to be like, if a kid had a question, they could message me and I'd actually respond to them, or I'd talk to them, or I'd go up the chair with them, or I'd invite them to come snowboard with me, or like, you know, just make it a little bit more punk rock and a little bit more about snowboarding.
Right.
Than about making money and
marketing.
Yeah.
I
mean, it was a marketing thing. It did incredible.
Right.
Like,
right.
We had on the platforms, I think the first year we had like 20 million views or something like that. Like,
Holy Christ.
It was fucking crazy. I didn't even realize that that's the start of YouTube.
That's like, insane.
It was 2007. I think YouTube started like 05, 06.
That is nuts.
Of the videos that are there, like.
Did you get monetized for that, or was
that? Yeah, I was one of the early monetized like snowboard people. I think back on it. My one buddy, he's a YouTuber guy, and he's like, man, if you would have just kept doing it,
yeah,
because you started so early, you would be an institution of the platform for your genre. He's like, you'd be one of those guys that's easily making $10,000 a month just because you were there from the very start.
Have you looked at what the guys are that are doing it now?
No. I still make some money off my Snowboard Realms. They're still on there. They're still monetized. It automatically deposits in my bank account. You know, it's like
awesome.
now it's like $60 a month or something.
Sure,
like that.
but still, even $60 a month that's dope.
They're there, you know.
Yeah,
Most of the videos are down now, but
is it just because they've? How do they take them down?
I don't remember. I know I deleted a bunch in the first season because I didn't have like the music rights.
Gotcha.
Towards I think towards the third and fourth season was when I started like getting full music rights because I know a lot of people in the music industry and bands and bullshit like that. So I had abilities to contact them and be like, "Can I use this song?" They'd be like, "Yeah, no problem."
That's smart.
Yeah.
I thought the first time I put up the podcast, it was called the FNRad Snowboarding Podcast, and I had a bit of copyright music in it for sure, and iTunes rejected it, and I was like, "Oh, it's got to be the copyright music."
I had an iTunes podcast in 2006.
Holy
it's crazy!
shit,
It's
dude.
so long ago, but again, it just like typical kind of Capita way is that we were a little bit too far ahead of the curve.
A little too
like
far
with
ahead.
our board graphics. Like if you look at Capita graphics over the last handful of years, they haven't changed a lot.
No, that's true.
We had to slow them down because people were starting to identify with them 3 years later.
Right.
And by that time we were like,
you're on to the next thing.
We were so far away from that.
You're 4 years ahead, 3 years
so
later.
we needed to like slow things down. But again,
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, that's sick. I didn't know any of that about the Realm stuff. Like that's. So how does that peter out? What were you getting burned out? What was your schedule for those? How often were you putting them out?
I put them out whenever I wanted to. I was like, the hardest part about the Snowboard Realms was I didn't have production. It was like my friends would film, I would be filming, I'd be editing, posting, responding, like
everything.
It's the same thing as the shop. It's like a one-man show. People don't really realize like how small things are, but there's only one person doing it, and it becomes really difficult to film yourself snowboarding.
Fuck yeah.
To make a film,
I hear you.
To like make it good, and the production, and then I think Fuel TV kind of ripped me off. They did they asked me to put my stuff on their platform for like 2 years, and then they ended up doing basically a Snowboard Realms with Aero Atella, and I was kind of like, huh. I think one of the guys from the company was like, "They're fucking jacking your shit." I was like, whatever. And then, they're like, how the fuck can these guys be asking you to put it on there, and then they just take your idea and give it to somebody else, and then things started becoming real productions of on the internet, and I was just
so this is probably why when I told you, I'm like, we want to do this comedians in cars getting coffee thing. You're like, yeah, so does everybody.
That's the thing. It's like real production to do things properly. You got to have some money behind it. You have to have a filmer. You have to have an editor. You have to have 2 filmers probably. You have to have the budget to do it. And I was, even though we were getting, like I think currently the best video or whatever, like one of the most viewed videos on our my YouTube page, which hasn't been logged into in 7 years, has like, 500,000 views or whatever.
Right.
Like if you look at a brand like Capita or these people, like it's snowboard videos on YouTube don't typically get 500,000 views, like I know some of the Scotty Stevens ones have like 100,000. Like if you look on the Capita Cinema page,
right,
a couple 100,000 or 100,000 maybe.
That's a lot.
And
that's a lot.
Like if you look at the amount of money that goes into that video that got, 200,000 views. Let's say it's Scott Stevens Defenders of Awesome's part. The amount of money that went into producing that video part for it to get 200,000-300,000 views.
Right.
The amount of money that went into a Snowboard Realms video to get 500,000 views or those 20 million views.
Yeah.
The first year I asked for $200 from each sponsor so I could buy a camera. And we got 20 million views. Like,
Oh my
Like,
God.
I was scared to ask them to help me make a production. If I could have made this thing good, it could have blew the fuck up. But,
Right.
You know,
20 million. Jesus Christ.
I remember putting together the sheet after the first year to send to the guys, and I was just like, between Fuel TV and blah 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 and YouTube and video and Vimeo or whatever with all these things, I was like, holy fuck. And like at the time I'd responded to every comment and like, which was terrible. I think you said in some others, like, don't read comments, and fuck, that's a bad spot.
No, I'm fine. I'm lucky that every comment I've ever had is good. There was
Wait
one
till you start getting the ones where they're
one.
like, kill yourself. Like, I remember, fuck, man. If watch this motherfucker's probably like listening. He's like, I love snowboarding so much. He fucking sent me he sent me a message. He was like, something blah blah blah. You should just fucking kill yourself. And I was like, these videos are free.
What? Like, kind of person?
You actually logged into the internet, typed my name, or whatever the video's name, and then watched it. You don't have to watch it.
Yeah, nobody is. You didn't pay.
Comments.
That sucks. That really does suck.
And they sit heavy.
They said heavy. That's the thing.
Heavy.
Okay, so that's what I've talked about. There's like one guy who was like, actually, there's a guy, Niles Shearer, who's a guy who rides at the local mountains. And for whatever reason, in a comment thread, he's like, I listened to the Sean Johnson one half an hour in, I turned it off. And like that's it. So that's a negative comment to me because I'm like, why'd you turn it off? You don't like my voice? You don't like Sean? What's the problem? Like, and I know the guy, and I like it's festering in my head. Like the next time I see him, I'm going to be like, why'd you turn it off? I need to know. Meanwhile, there's like 80 comments of like somebody being like, thank you for doing this. You guys are the best. Everybody you talk to is the best. It sits right on the top of your heart. And you're just why?
With this stuff I was doing, I was like, come on, dude. Like, I spend hours making these.
Right.
For like zero.
For zero.
Like, I mean, I get paid to snowboard, but it's like,
I
never got paid a lot from any one company. The only reason I made any money was because I had 8 sponsors.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, even then, the only reason I made any money was because I was not stupid with it. You know, I was not a drinker. I wasn't a drug addict. You know, like shit like that. But it's like,
when you say you weren't a drinker, what about those trips with like Ranquit?
Oh, I don't think I drank at all at that time.
Would he be drinking like Ranquit?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, he's taking it easy.
This was well after the like him and Jay getting kicked out of Japan type shit.
Right.
I remember him telling me that.
Yeah.
He was like, dude, I got fucking escorted out of this country. Like type shit. And I was like, I don't think we drank at that. I was never much of a drinker. There would be like little spurts of like, party. Very, very chill.
Yeah, Ranquit called Burt Lamar when he was. Oh no, sorry, I'm getting mixed up now. That was Johnson. Johnson called Burt Lamar when he was drunk and was like, "I quit your fucking shitty team." Nice. You know, and then the next day was like, "Hey, Burt, where are you sending me next?"
That Seinfeld episode. Oh, you took that serious?
Yeah.
Jokes.
Well, imagine Johnson at his drinking craziness. Plus Ranquit at his drinking craziness.
Like whiskey style.
Yeah. Well, that's where that whiskey came out of, was like, hey, the stuff that's in between the snowboarding is way crazier than the shit that's going on.
You know what? I remember buying the whiskey video, and I think that some of those videos kind of inspired like the Snowboard Realms stuff of just of just seeing, because my understanding of the whiskey videos was those guys kind of taking it into their own hands and making their own videos, you know? And,
you know what it was? They even talked about it. Mac Dog came up or Fall Line Films, because Fall Line was like crazy before, and filmed at Whistler, and didn't film with Johnson or Kearns. That was it. That was like the catalyst. They're like, you can't come to our home fucking mountain and not film with us. We're here. Yeah. We got to do this all our fucking selves.
There was that, and then I remember buying this DVD when I was like 18, 19, and it was a video called DIY or Die, and I've been a huge Guar fan since I was like
rad.
13 years old, and I remember there was an interview with Dave, and he was talking about just like how important it was to just sort of that punk rock ethos of just like, you know, we don't know how to do it, but we're going to do it. And we're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
You know, and I ended up meeting Dave a lot later, but he was like such an inspiration.
Cool.
Like I've done some things where I've talked about like Dave and Odorous and those guys, and then talking about how like Dave was like my father figure, you know, like Dave Brocky was like my father figure in the sense of like, he instilled in me that like ethos of like, you don't have to rely on anybody else. You can make it yourself. And the Realms came out of that, the snowboard world.
That's
like,
incredible.
Let's, from a snowboarder's perspective, which is also the Capita, Jason Brown ethos of like, we have complete creative control. We can make whatever we want. We can show the snowboard world in the light that we want it to be shown in, you know, being away from your girlfriend or flying or having interviews or eating shitty food all the time or
right.
But not the glorified, super glorified way of doing it on like
went
an
back
MTV
to
or some shit.
I went back to Guar's hotel room.
Oh, wow.
With it would have been the bass player.
Was
at the
this
time.
Vegas?
Vegas.
Yeah, 2003.
That's exactly when.
That's when I met Dave for the first time.
Yeah. And so you're out with Dave. I'm out with, who was the bass player? I don't even know.
Carrie Smoot.
So Carrie Smoot.
Well, they had a bunch of different players, bass players.
Yeah, right, exactly. So this guy he brought us back to a shitty hotel room.
Yeah.
And I remember the Guar girls, which was just like they would have groupies hanging around anyways, changed the outfits in front of me and Jesse Fulton.
Yeah, I still have a photo of Fulton wearing that fucking chicken outfit.
Yes.
And Odorous, like, I think Fulton was riding like a motorized scooter.
Yep.
And then Dave is like chasing him.
Yep.
With his cock out.
I was
You probably didn't meet the bass player. You probably met the guitarist Dirks.
It could have been.
Because it was Dirks, Brad, and Dave that showed up. Those were like the three. I mean, the bass player, the original bass player, I believe, is now the lead singer. One of the original bass players. Yeah, is now the singer.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was enamored. I was like, these guys are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I love them. And out of costume, they're just regular guys nobody recognizes, so that's cool. And then the next day they were at the show with the costumes on, and I went up to be like, hey, is he in there? And just Odorous hucked a big like loogie right on my face.
I remember, I didn't see them in costume. I remember, this is the weirdest story.
No, let's hear it.
We were doing a session signing, and
Yeah.
it's like, again, looking back, being like, what the fuck is my life? It's me and Steve Caballero sitting there signing autographs. And I'm
Unfucking
like,
believable.
okay, this is weird.
Yeah.
Fucking, this is Cab, what are you doing? I'm like, cool. And then this guy comes up to me and he's like, you TJ? And I'm like, I am. He's like, I was told to come meet you. And I'm like, cool. Who are you? He's like, oh, I'm Dave Brocky, Odorous Urungus, Guar. And I was like, holy fuck. And he's like, everybody keeps telling me you're a Guar fan. Like, you're the biggest Guar fan. Like, we were supposed to meet you. I'm like, okay. I'm like, oh, sorry, I didn't recognize you. He's like, you don't, like, you
Yeah.
Right. Like, of course. And I met him and Brad and Dirks. I remember introducing Blue to Brad. And I think they've stayed actually pretty tight. But then Dave is standing there and he's like, holy shit, is that Steve Caballero? And I'm like, it is. And he goes, do you know him? And I'm like, no. I mean, we just sat together for like 2 hours, but not really.
Yeah.
And he's like, introduce me. So I'm like, I'm introducing Cab to Dave. Cab doesn't give a fuck. He's just kind of like, cool. And Dave is like, man, you got to be so old. Like, he's like, I'm almost 40. How old are you? He's like, and I took a photo of Dave and Cab. And I remember I sent it to Dave years ago. That was pretty rad. But anyway.
He passed away recently, yeah?
Yeah.
How, 2 years ago or something?
No, 2016 or 2014.
Oh, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Sorry for your loss, man. Like,
it was actually really weird. I was because I always had Dave's number, and I remember maybe a couple years later, he called me. I was adamant about not answering my phone snowboarding.
Sure, yeah.
And I was in Whistler, and I was going up the chair, and my phone rang, For whatever reason, I looked at it and it said Odorous Urungus, and I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, hello? And he's like, TJ, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm just snowboarding. He's like, oh, God, blah, blah, blah. And we talked about art and shit like that. But the day before he died, or the night he died, I was sitting at my girlfriend's house at the time, and I was like, I think I'm going to go to the Guarbecue. I hadn't seen Guar play in a little while. It had been a few years, and I was like, I'm going to do it. Like, I have some money. I'm going to go to Richmond, Virginia, and go to the Guarbecue. I looked on the site, found the dates, went to sleep, woke up in the morning, and he passed away, like, literally at the exact same time that I was, like, on the website.
Whoa.
And I was like, there's those moments where you're like, man, I wish I would have just, like, you know, because he fucking died of a heroin overdose. It's like, imagine if you could have, like, it's that weird tingling in your ears, like somebody's thinking about you, or like you're like, why did I think about that? I don't think about Guar often. Why did I?
Or if
I could have messaged him and been
you
like,
got it in your head
hey man,
to message
I'm like,
him.
I'm gonna come to the Guarbecue, you know, and he's like, oh fuck, cool, sets down the heroin or something like that.
Or like even just even just having that conversation with you
Just
brings
anything,
them
like,
into a little bit more present to be like, hey, I got tons of friends and fans.
I was super bummed when he passed away because, like I say, for me growing up, like I had a dad, but it was just I didn't really have like a father figure like that. So I looked to dudes like Peter and those snowboarding guys, and that's why snowboarding I think became so important. And I think, you know, seeing that video with like Dave and them really expressing like that you can do this yourself. You don't have to be a part of like a group that is like, you don't have to rely on anybody else to make something for you. And so he was like, when he passed away, I was like, fuck, man. That's like, he instilled like that ethic of like, you can do it yourself.
That's fucking rad.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I'm super happy I got to meet him. I saw him a handful of times, like play with his real balls hanging out, and like would message him after the shows. But, you know, again, would he remember who I am? Probably fucking not. But
oh, of course he would.
Of
if
course,
he's calling you.
Well,
give me a break.
that was fucking 2004.
People don't forget. We're talking about stuff from 1993. You know what I mean? You don't forget shit. Like, I met Kevin Jones in 94 or whatever, and like that just stayed with me the whole time. When I called him and talked to him, did he remember me? I doubt it. But, you know, on a long enough conversation, he's like, oh, yeah, I remember that place. And there were people there, and I guess you were one of those people.
Memory's funny.
Well, no, he remembered. I'm pretty sure he remembered. Like, because he was there with Sedway, and he was just a young kid. We're kind of the same. We're probably exactly the same age, actually. But he was, like, up here. Oh, man. He was and I was, like, it's so funny.
He was larger than life. I remember seeing KJ the first time snowboarding. It was just like, I remember seeing him being like, I can do all this. I could do that too. Right. But he was like, it was at the Sims slow, like they did that little rail contest where they had the little rail set up in the park. Right. I think that was around the same time that Mikey and those guys blew out their legs. I think that was the same trip.
The winch cat thing. Yeah. Oh, that is gnarly.
Because I think they were snowboarding that park set up.
Oh, right. And then they were coming down
on the way
down. And so the cat driver had no idea anyone would be going anywhere. Yeah. That was gnarly.
But I remember seeing KJ at that and just being like, wow, he's so good.
He's so good. Yeah. The thing about him wasn't that it I don't know, maybe I'm boiling it down to the wrong thing, but I feel like he rode like not like a superstar, but he rode so well. Like, he didn't have some off-axis thing. Those flat spins,
tens off his toes kind of shit.
We're just like, holy shit.
In POW, though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, he was incredible.
And his personality, too, is like, he's one of those guys like Peter Line, quirky and weird and funny. And
I feel like that guy, Dan, Traveling Dan, what the fuck is his name? Burton Kid?
Priest.
Dan.
Danny Davis?
Yeah, Danny Davis.
Yeah.
He's kind of got that, like, he reminds me of KJ, just like, always like, bam, yelling, crazy. I was watching some shit of him today, and I was like, you're annoying as fuck, but man, you are killing it. I remember all these kids before they became these, like, characters, before they became, like, superstars in the sport.
Right.
But I'm like, good on him. Like, he's creating a character. He's creating.
Did you see that air to fakie at the last?
He's incredible.
That
He's a
was
magical snowboarder.
That was my favorite thing. One of the favorite things I saw from snowboarding that
Switch
year.
method.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, fuck off.
I know. Right?
Period.
That's what Devin Walsh was
Can't remember.
working
I
on.
couldn't remember his name. Dan. I can't remember his last name.
Yeah.
That's switch method.
Switch
Fuck
method.
off.
Yeah.
Period.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. The first day I rode with Devin Walsh was in Montana, actually. It was on a trip with Rob Dow. Roberta was there. We were just riding around. No glove era. I was wearing like gauntlet mitts up to here, like those lobster combi gloves.
I love no glove era. I've got photos of me doing contests in like Montreal. It's fucking snowing. No gloves.
No gloves.
Cut fingers.
Yeah, cutting. Unbelievable. And he was working on switch methods, and I couldn't understand why you would do that.
Danny was working on switch methods?
No, Devin.
Oh.
And Roberta was too.
Devin working on straight air switch methods?
Straight
Into
air
POW?
switch methods.
That's too much.
It was fucked up. I remember I understood why. I did understand why, but I was like, hey, I got to work on like just regular shit before I start going backwards at stuff. Like I need a little more fucking of the basics before I'm going after shit
They
that's
were
impossible.
pro snowboarders, so.
Yeah, yeah. And they were, they might have even still been in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That was
Pre-pro.
Yeah, like he was getting paid, so he was a pro. $200 a month.
Never.
Something like that. Yeah, totally. Unfucking real. Okay, let's wrap it up, man. It's been 2 hours. It's
a
great
long
conversation. Well, you live close, so we can do this. If you've got anything to talk about ever, you want to promote your shop or anything to people that want. That's not your stuff. You see his face. He's like, no, not really.
Yeah, come see me. You know where I am. No, I have a small clothing store down in Chinatown, so if anybody wants to come, it's very simple. The Shop,
Yeah,
Vancouver.
yeah, it's epic. How did that come about?
I don't know. It just happened. Actually, I actually started talking to Tyler about it.
Yeah.
Because Ty had opened Super Champion, and I think he'd already sold it. And I was like, dude, I want to open a store. I've been interested in kind of denim-y stuff for a long time. My buddy Mike and I were going to make a denim company around 2002, but he got busy doing design stuff. He started working for Burton and Nixon and all these other fucking companies, and I started snowboarding more, so it fell by the wayside. Mentioned it to Ty. He was like, I don't want to do retail. Mutual friend of his wife's and kind of whatever, and opened it with him, and then I bought him out like a year into it, and then I've been doing it 7.5 years.
So it's just you?
Just me, yeah.
And then do you have an employee or two?
No.
Wow. So
it's just me.
What do you think retail jail wise? Are you there long hours and you're
I think of work as like being a band. If you want to come to my store, come when I'm open. It might be a little bit of a dickish attitude, but
way.
I'm not fucking Walmart. I
Right.
don't sell cheap shit. I sell like independent companies, sort of that same ethos of what Capita was, like independent, small batch, good quality. I sell my friends stuff.
right.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Like a curated collection of awesome shit.
It's a curated collection of good stuff from primarily Japan, and that's it.
Japanese denim's
Yeah.
good, right?
Yeah.
Really good.
Well, America doesn't really make any good stuff anymore, so.
Why
Cone
is
Mills,
that?
Cone Mills got this guy Wilbur Ross owned it.
Yeah.
Part of that whole Trumpian shit, and he just kind of foreclosed it, sold it out. He's my understanding he's one of those philanthropists or whatever that makes more money by closing companies down.
Oh, that sucks.
And he shut down, the Cone Mills in Greensboro, 125 years of business, and he buys it and shuts it down.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awful.
Yeah.
So what are the main things that you sell there? Denim.
Yeah,
clothing and
denim, leather jackets.
leather
It's all
jackets
kind of
and stuff.
motorcycle. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you know who Josh Rosen is. He's one of the early like Foursquare forum
I do.
T2 kind of guys. Like,
yeah.
he started a store called Saturdays New York City,
Yeah.
which when I was opening the store, I was looking at a lot of their stuff, being like, they did a clothing store that was sort of surf culture.
Yeah.
And then I'm like looking through the site, and I'm like, I message him, I'm like, dude, what the fuck do you have to do with this Saturdays New York City? And he's like, I own it. And our buddy Javis Len was doing like all the graphics for it and stuff like that. And I was like, motherfucker. I'm like, I'm opening a similar store, but with motorcycle culture. So ours, it's kind of it's not motorcycle specific, but motorcycle appropriate, kind of the culture that's around that 50s, 60s, 70s motorcycle culture. Like the shit that Marlon Brando and James Dean and Steve McQueen and those guys were wearing.
Sick.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's just classic Americana.
And you're not struggling at 7 years in?
Yeah,
you're doing all right?
It's hard as fuck, but whatever. What else am I going to do? Oh, wait, I've done a ton of shit. I can do anything I fucking want.
Yeah, that's a pretty broad statement. What else are you going to do?
Yeah, I don't know yet.
Who knows?
I'll just come do this and I'll fucking talk all day to the next person.
Anytime you want, man. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you for doing
Shaboom.
it. All right.
There you go.
Peace. FNRad shoutouts this week to Mount Seymour, and especially thank you personally to Eddie Wood for taking the time to listen to my dumb admission of stealing lift passes from the mountain or just riding without one. Bad move. Extra special thank you to Simon in marketing for hooking up corporate passes this season. I'm really excited to shred up there. I'm going to thank Cypress Mountain, Natasha, who got me on the Media Pass program up there. Thanks to Natasha. Special thanks to Grouse Mountain as well. To Marcus, his entire park staff, Grant, and everyone in mountain operations. As you can tell, I have a polyamorous relationship with Vancouver's local mountains. Grouse Mountain's season opener gathering is Friday, December 13th from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. This mellow celebration is open to snowboarders of all ability levels, so grab your friends and join the Boardroom Snowboard Shop, Salmon Arms, Dinos Will Die, and SGV in spreading good vibes and high fives, and even some prizes for those that are taking full advantage of the park. Registration opens Monday. Helmets are mandatory. Go to grousemountain.com or Grouse Parks on Instagram for more information. Be sure to come back next week for another episode of the FNRad Snowboarding Podcast, presented by Vans and brought to you by SIA Productions.